welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council, 14th of May. If we could start with the karakia. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No conflict of interest.
Potential with the Rumataka Road Action Group, but I believe that's covered with being largely covered.
Thank you, Councillor Bowyer.
Is that up to you to decide?
Do we have any apologies? No apologies. Public forum. We have Robin Dunlop to come forward, Robin, and is going to give us a bit of an address on the Trimble Trust.
Oh, welcome. Good to see you all again. I seem to be coming frequently these days. I just said to Gary some time ago, you probably don't hear much about Trimble and what it does. We don't get money from council, so then we don't therefore end up doing your normal quarterly reporting. So I thought it's probably a good idea just to give you a bit of a brief update of what we're up to. Did you all get a piece of paper? Yep. Just briefly outlining what our purpose is. So probably might be useful to do more questions than perhaps me talking, but the main thing that you need to know about it is that we are viable. We have obviously a lot of assets and 2 properties. Biggest problem is cash flow as usual. So we run out of cash probably next year, and we've then got to either borrow money or use carbon credits or something like that. But I mean, it's all manageable, but it's just the reality. You can't keep spending money you haven't got it. We have been in the recent years putting quite a brake on spending money that we thought was not necessary. So we've been managing it quite carefully. Another thing is a lot of work was done out there with different trials of different tree species over the past, and we've got to the point where we've had to reassess all that, because it's all great to do it, but it's all money. It's got to be maintained, looked after, and so on. So we've done a reassessment of what we need to keep and what we're not going to keep, and that's probably going to ease the burden a bit. We've also been very fortunate in getting money to build a shelter out there. We put a new road in further up those who know the site, very close to the turn off to Riversdale. We have a new road called Rewa Nui Lane, and that sort of enters into the main block of the property. It's quite a big improvement having that, and we put trees down each side, Highgate Avenue. And up there we got money from Trust House to build the shelter. We built the shelter, and we're now looking at possible toilet or something like that. All these things are a bit complicated when you've got no power and you only got water from springs, and all those issues come, challenging. But we're trying to improve the amenity of the property, because we really want, one of the things that we should really try and do with this property is actually make it available for people. I know they can go walking there, but we want to try and increase the ability to educate children, have children come to visit the place, and open days and stuff like that. The trouble is we're a small team and no official staff, of course, so we have to do it all ourselves, and it's a bit of a challenge, but I think it's a wonderful asset to have on your doorstep, and we've got to try and make the most of it. So probably that's about all I really need to comment on. I'd probably better take questions for anybody.
Right, questions. Councillor Goodwin.
You talked about you're going to have to rationalise what trees you have and don't have. What are you going to? What does that mean? What are you going to get rid of?
Yeah, some of the trials have got out of control. Weeds, everything, and they're not doing that well either. So what we're doing is we're going to look at. We are doing this is actually keeping the best trees and getting rid of the rubbish, and just trying to minimise the cost. so we don't have to do a lot of maintenance, because the trouble is with these sort of things, maintenance costs are very high, and the money just runs away with you. And sometimes it was probably nice to try things, but it wasn't necessarily that successful. One of the things that originally the team was looking to do was to try and grow things that could be used for, say, posts and stuff without using chemicals. That's a great idea, but it's not always that possible to do that. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, hi Robin, thank
Hi.
you. I just had a query. When your harvest is due in 2031, what will the revenue go towards from that?
Well, we haven't really made that decision because we haven't got there yet. There's a long way to go. Clearly, first thing is the debts, we'll have to pay that off. But our board has not put their mind to what they're going to do with the money they haven't got, because it's still a fair way away. So I can't answer that because we just haven't done it. But we might be looking for suggestions, I would think. There's great possibilities. There are clearly opportunities to develop aberrations out there, the wet areas. There's a whole lot more development that could be done, which we cannot do with the money. We haven't got the money at the moment.
Councillor Lennox.
Thank you, Robin. Just a query around collaboration with other community groups, like there's Sustainability Wairapa and the YP2K group as well. I'm just thinking from that, manpower behind some of the events or open days and things, they might be able to help you in some shape or form.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll talk to you about that. Yeah.
Yes, cool. All good.
Offline.
Councillor Holmes.
Robin, I just wonder, had you ever thought, or the Trimble Trust thought, if a block of land came up for sale adjacent to you, would you be interested in buying it? The trees or future?
I know it has been talked about, and because we haven't got the money at the moment, unless it was absolutely critical, you'd have to borrow the money to do it. I mean, you could do that, of course.
It could be a block that's got trees on it.
Yeah,
the thing is that
it would certainly have to be looked at.
Yeah,
If
Trimble Trust's an intergenerational thing. It's been on for
that's
years.
right, yeah.
So the other query is, I've always been keen on the horse trails there. Are you still talking with people?
Yeah, well, we had a very successful trial,
Yeah.
and they loved it. We ran into trouble with the Gabriel with big slips, so we're just trying to work out how we can minimise the amount of work to do to fix that. So it's on hold at the moment.
That's fine. Thank
But
you.
we got bikers using it, and there's lots of opportunities like that. But the horses are definitely will be on the agenda again.
Thanks, Robin.
Councillor Lena, did you have a question?
Thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge you and your team, Robin, for the work that you're doing there.
Thank you.
I think it's a really important initiative. But my question was a bit like Councillor Lennox around your volunteers and how many. Are they ageing? Are they declining? Are they growing? What's happening there?
Yeah, we tried to get established a Friends of Trimble, and we haven't had really that much success because you're right. A lot of the people that are interested have generally been older and now aren't able to help us. So we just get people when we can. We do employ a caretaker to help with the tracks, keep the tracks cleaned, and I mean there's lots of little jobs, bits of fencing and stuff like that, so the caretaker does all that minor stuff. And we do get some people who will come in and give us a load of shingle or something just to help us out, things like that. Higgins' concrete, for instance, gave us the concrete to put in the floor of the shelter. So we do look for sponsorship on that sort of way. Thank you.
Joe?
Robin, thank you for your report. My question is focused on your last paragraph in your report around carbon units. So has the Trust cashed up carbon units in the past, or have you a plan around how you intend to use the carbon units in the future?
Yeah, okay, we've not actually capitalised on any carbon credits whatsoever. We have carbon credits that can't be touched and ones that can. And there's quite a significant amount, probably about 600,000 that could be sold. we thought, well, there's no point in doing it unless you really have to. And there's a trade-off of whether you borrow money or whether you sell some of those carbon credits. And it probably would, the board is probably more favoured to sell some of those credits as opposed to borrowing money.
Robin?
Just a quick thing, you could actually lease carbon credits now. There are companies that will lease them with you.
Good point, yeah. Thank you for that.
I can give you phone numbers.
You do that, yeah, thank you. Always looking for ideas.
Any further questions for Robin? If not, thank you so much, Robin, for that.
That's all right.
Really
Pleasure.
interesting, and
Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
that. And good luck with the Trimble Trust.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Cheers, Robin.
Okay, any late items? No late items. We do have, you'll see a page there where we will be making changes to recommendations in one of the subjects further on. Okay, page 6. Confirmation of minutes from the council meeting held on April 2. Somebody prepared to move the true and correct record. Move Councillor Bowyer, seconded Councillor Lennox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, thank you. Page 20. Confirmation of minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on April 23. Somebody prepared to move their true and correct record. Councillor Johnson, seconded. I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Page 25, Hearings Committee, April 30, 2025. I'll move that there are Craig, you'd move that there are true and correct record.
Thank you.
We do have recommendations on page 25, 26. So they will be part of the move. Got a seconder for the motion? Councillor Holmes. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Page 33, the Audit and Risk Meeting, May 7. Again, we've got recommendations on pages 33, 34. I'll move that there be a true and correct record. Somebody seconded, along with those recommendations. Somebody seconded Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour? Say aye. Thank you. Page 45.
Discussion, sorry. Discussion.
These are just minutes, so there's...
Oh, can you not make anything else?
Unless you've got a correction.
I don't have a correction, but I just want to discuss the one we've got. No discussion. Cool, thank you.
Sorry. Page 45. Adoption of the Dangerous, Affected and Insanitary Buildings Policy. Karen.
And I'll hand over to Sophie to take
Sophie.
the paper and the following paper. Thank you, Your Worship, tēnā koutou. The purpose of this report is to seek your approval of the Dangerous, Affected and Insanitary Buildings Policy. I'll just run through a bit of an overview of the report. Under Section 131 of the Building Act, we must adopt a policy on dangerous and insanitary buildings. The purpose of the policy is to ensure people who use buildings can do so safely without endangering their health, and provide a framework for how council will respond to and manage dangerous, affected and insanitary buildings in the Masterton district. We consulted with the community using the special consultative procedure between 21st Feb and the 21st of March. We received 15 submissions. The Hearings Committee deliberated on the policy and feedback from the community on 30th of April. The majority of submissions were in support of the adoption of the policy without further amendments. In light of the feedback, staff proposed one amendment to the policy on page 7 of the policy to better articulate how notices for dangerous, affected or insanitary buildings, Section 124 notices, apply in designated emergency areas made under Part 2, Subpart B of the Building Act. The proposed amendment makes it clear that Section 124 notices under the Act cannot be made in a designated area. Notices issued prior to the designation continue to apply in certain circumstances. The Hearings Committee agreed to recommend to Council that it adopts the amended policy. We therefore recommend to Council that it adopt the Dangerous, Affected and Insanitary Buildings Policy to take account of legislative requirements, improve transparency and consistency, and to clarify how the policy is applied within the Council's broader strategic context. Thank you.
Any questions for Sophie? Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 45. Moved Councillor Bowyer, seconded Councillor Johnson. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Bowyer.
Sophie, thank you for your report. Just to clarify, as chair of this, while we had 15 submissions. I thought they were good submissions, and I'm really pleased that the officers took notice and made a small amendment. So yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone who was involved.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. Move Councillor Bowe, second Councillor Johnson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We now move to, thank you Sophie, thanks for that. Page 63, the adoption of the dog policy. And you're doing that too, are you Sophie?
Yeah. Star of the show. Kia ora koutou. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval of adoption of the dog policy and the control of dogs bylaw. Under the Dog Control Act, we must adopt a policy on dogs and must make a bylaw on the control of dogs in our district. The policy provides clarity and guidance to both dog control officers and the community regarding the application of fees and the waiving of fees, what responsible owner dog status means, requirements for microchipping and how many dogs are permitted at each premises and other matters. The bylaw outlines the management and control of dogs in our district. This includes the prohibition of dogs in certain public spaces. It aims to ensure responsible dog ownership and minimise potential harm or nuisance caused by dogs. Both the policy and the bylaw must be consistent with one another. Like the dangerous buildings, we went out to consult between February and March and we received 135 submissions. 69% of submitters were in support of the proposed policy and bylaw. Following consultation, we made amendments to the policy and bylaw regarding the discretion to waive the surrender fee. This was mainly just some clarifying points in what we will consider when waiving that fee, and on exercising dogs from motor vehicles, so providing an explanatory note in there around what a motor vehicle means, just to make it really clear and aligning that to what NZTA wakakotahi advice is. We therefore recommend that Council adopt the policy and control of dogs bylaw, as this most effectively balances the need to protect public safety and wildlife with providing better facilities and clearer rules for dog owners. This also aligns with the recommendation for Council to adopt the amended policy and bylaw.
Okay, questions for Sophie? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. I was just interested in exploring the dogs in the CBD aspect, and note that. My first question is, do you think you didn't get enough feedback on that? And the second point is, I see dogs in the CBD every week. They're always leashed, the ones I've seen, so people are habitually doing that anyway. So I just wondered why you're going to further consult on it and whether it was because you didn't get enough feedback this time around.
I think the main reason we need to go back to our community is we didn't specifically seek community feedback on that option within this consultation, so we need to go back to community before we make that change. So we discussed that during the deliberations and identified that the most appropriate means for us to do that is through the next annual plan consultation to seek community feedback on that specific option, so we make sure that we get that community are clear on what it means.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So what are the rules at the moment? Like, do you get reports from the general public about dogs in the CBD, or is it kind of fly under the radar?
Terry might be a good person to answer this, but I assume that people do report it to council through our customer service centre. I'm not sure of the volumes of those complaints, but
yes, I haven't got the numbers of the reports, but we have had reports of dogs in town, and the team do regular monitoring to educate people about the prohibition of dogs in town.
And do you just request that they leave with you? Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? No other questions. Are somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 63? Move Councillor Bayer, seconded Councillor Johnson. Discussion? Councillor Bayer.
Sophie, once again, thank you for your time and the team and the effort put into this. Pleasing to see 135 submissions on this, full of lots of information, things that we possibly hadn't thought about in the past. And back to Councillor Johnson's point about dogs in the CBD, was a real topic that came through that time, and because it wasn't in scope of this, that's why we really need to go back. But it certainly, and it was an amendment was put forward by Mayor Caffel as to do this. So I think we've got a pleasing result. Just amazed the amount of submissions on this, and so we can see that dogs are a real part of people's lives here and are key to a lot of people's well-being. So thank you for your time and thank you for the team.
Thank you, Councillor Bowyer. Just to also further that, to answer Councillor Johnson, is that in the mayoral sit-downs I have every week, I'd had a number of discussions over people who believe that dogs should be allowed in the CBD. And that's why when it came up at the meeting that I asked that this be given a proper consultation, because I think the number of people who believe that dogs should be allowed in the CBD is growing, and if we go up to consultation, at least we'll find out. The one thing I will say, however, is since that has come out in the press, I've also had a number of people saying to me, no, we don't like the idea of dogs being in the CBD. So it'll be very interesting when we go out to consultation on that to see where that lands. But there are a number of towns throughout New Zealand who do allow dogs in their CBD. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, well, I just hope when you do go into that question that, because, I mean, at the end of the day, there are a lot of dogs in town and there's very little problem. But occasionally with dogs, there is a problem. So I just want to make sure when you do go out, part of going out to the people is the enforcement and control that you'll have to put in place and feed that back onto the dog feeds, I assume.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further discussion? Yes, Karen.
Just clarifying that the resolution in here is for, if council agree with this resolution, officers will put together a report identifying what the issues are and the reasons why we've had a ban in the CBD and pros and cons. So council will have a chance to make a decision about whether you want us to go out to consultation. So that's not this resolution, that's to come. You don't have all the information in front of you to actually make that final decision yet.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion moved by Councillor Bowyer, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Page 109. This is the adoption of the draft Wairarapa Consolidated Bylaw and Standard of Proposal for Consultation, Statement of Proposal for Consultation. Karen, this is the one where we've got the new recommendations.
It is indeed, Your Worship.
Thank you.
It's a mammoth beast, so we'll take a bit of time to go through it. So this paper is for Council to approve the adoption of the draft Wairarapa Consolidated Bylaw, Statement of Proposal and Draft Bylaw for consultation. So yes, we have a substitute set of recommendations, and I think we've got some available in the public gallery that I will take you through a little bit later, so just a heads up that will be a replacement, and that's in response to some late legal advice we received on Friday, and effectively what we are proposing to do is to delay the consultation. It was due to start today, subject to approval from Council, but we're going to delay that so that we can do a little bit more work on the particular part where we have that legal advice. So just a quick summary. The Consolidated Bylaw is our major regulatory instrument across the three councils in the Wairarapa. It regulates a wide matters, including public places, selling things in public places, keeping of animals, traffic, water supply, wastewater. It was due to be reviewed by June 24, and because it's a huge piece of work, it's taken a year for us to do that. We have until June 26 to approve a replacement bylaw, but if we do not do it by then, we have no bylaw, so there is a matter of urgency to get this done. So officers have been working across the three councils with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group since March 2024. carried out research, consulted with key stakeholders. The research we have identified in attachment 3, you can see that there are, because it's such a huge piece of legislation effectively, that it addresses a number of problems that we're trying to control in the bylaw. And so we've carried out research to understand whether those problems still exist, whether there are new problems, whether a bylaw is the most appropriate way of dealing with those problems, because that's what we're required to think about under the Local Government Act, because this is a regulatory instrument. They are criminal offences if you don't comply with the bylaw, so it's quite a serious matter we need to take seriously. So are there better ways of dealing with these problems? Could we actually deal with the problem, for example, by education or by working with traders, having an approved trader scheme? Those are the sorts of things that we can do that do not require us to create criminal offences in a bylaw. So you'll see from that attachment 3, it's a big piece of work, and there's been a lot of thought that's gone into the consolidated bylaw, and we've workshopped that with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. We identify in the report as well that local water done well. You will see that 3 parts of the bylaw are about water. As we said, that we do need to replace the bylaw by June 26. Whilst we're anticipating that a new entity or services provided by council will start in 26, we don't know what that service looks like, and so we need to continue our bylaw. And then further down the track, the local water done well legislation requires a review within 2 years of the bylaws so that we can consolidate them. So we're in a pretty good place there. So we need to continue on, and we have reordered the parts so that they are the last 3 parts, so that we can just easily remove them from the bylaw and don't have to go through renumbering. As the report states, we were waiting for legal advice on Part 9 water supply, and that was regarding estimating consumption. That's relevant where we have broken water meters, where we haven't had a reading, and where we have shared connections. You'll know that we've been working through a policy for what we do with our shared connections, which is a particular issue for us in Masterton. We got that legal advice on Friday, and it means that we need to change the bylaw, but it's not so straightforward that we can just change things with a couple of words. So that's why we are making the recommendation that we actually delay the consultation. So it will give us a couple of weeks to actually work through that, and then work with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group to make sure that they're comfortable with those proposals, and then come back for council sign-off on that part of the bylaw. As I said, we need to get something in place for June 26. We have some local elections in October, where we may have different councillors, and we are really keen to see the bylaw go through before those elections, so that we don't end up repeating the work that we've just done. It's taken over a year to get where we are, so we'd like to continue with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, just reviewing. They've done an amazing job. Our councillors Beaulieu and Nelson have been on that group for us, and we don't want to waste all of that work, so that's why we want to push on this side of the elections. As I say, this is a serious matter because it's criminal offences that we're creating, so council needs to make determinations that under the Local Government Act that make sure that we are doing the right thing by creating those criminal offences in bylaws, so that the bylaw is the most appropriate way of dealing with the particular issues that we've identified, and that the form of the bylaw that we have put together in the form of the draft bylaw is the most appropriate form, and that any rights and limitations under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act that the bylaw will necessarily impinge on are only limited to the extent that is justified under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, and we have determined our recommendation is that we've made that assessment, and we do not think that the limitations that we have in the bylaw are an unreasonable limitation on those rights. So we'll just take you through the new recommendations for approving us to go ahead with consultation. So we're noting that a joint review of the Wairarapa bylaw is underway, that Council endorses the recommendations of the Policy Working Group to adopt the bylaw, statement of proposal and the draft bylaw for community consultation, so that you adopt it today.
Noting that we had previously planned on opening our consultation today, but that we are now noting that consultation using the special consultative procedure is now proposed to run between the 25th of June and the 25th of July, and that's for parts 1 to 10 of the bylaw, and from 25th of May to the 25th of July for the tradeways. So the tradeways bylaw, we're required to consult with the Minister, so we have to have 2 months open for the tradeways part. So we're going to start sooner with the tradeways part, and then after a month we'll bring in the rest of the bylaw. That will give us time to make those changes, and then we'll finish the consultation at the same time for both of those parts of the, for all of the bylaw. So as I say, we recommend that you determine that in accordance with the Local Government Act, a bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing the perceived problems, that you determine that the draft bylaw is the most appropriate form of bylaw, and that you determine that draft bylaw does not give rise to any implications under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, in that any of those limitations are justified. And then, because we need to change things around, we've got a full statement of proposal and a full bylaw sitting there in the appendices, and we're only going to go ahead with the tradeways part to start with, and then the rest of the bylaw we need to pull out the information that's within that statement of proposal and make a mini statement of proposal, and to go ahead with that part 1 and the tradeways. So the part 1 is a general part of the bylaw. So we'll create a mini statement of proposal. So we're delegating authority to the Chief Executive to format a statement of proposal for Part 11 trade waste of the bylaw for consultation using the content from the full statement of proposal, and that the Chief Executive can make any minor edits that do not alter the intent of that content. You note that officers will report to the 25th of June Council meeting to adopt the revised provisions relating to Part 9. That's after we've fixed up the water supply bit following legal advice, and noting that the Wairarapa Policy Working Group will hear submissions and undertake deliberations on dates to be confirmed, because we need to get everybody together for those hearing dates now that they're going to have to change because of the delay in consultation. And there's some noting there around the make-up of the Wairarapa Policy Working Group regarding the chair and members from the CDC onto the working group. And that noting that following hearings and deliberations, the Wairarapa Policy Working Group will make final recommendations to Council on a final bylaw for September before we break up. Happy to take any questions.
Right, questions for Karen. Thanks for that, Karen. Questions for Karen? Councillor Hodge.
Karen, with the joint connections for the meters, are you able to give us a sort of a hint of what might have come up legally? Personally, I don't think we should have any joint connections, because I think even if council pay for the tidy up now, in the long run it's going to be cheaper. Can you give us any hint of what the opinion was from the lawyer?
Sure, because we'll be coming back to you with reflecting what that is. It's not specifically around shared connections, but effectively the legal advice was around estimating consumption. So if we are measuring, under the Local Government Rating Act, if we're measuring people's water through a meter, we have to, and then charging, if we're charging volumetrically, we have to measure through a meter. So the alternatives are using volumetric, as we are proposing to do, or using a flat rate with a rates assessment, as we do at the moment. So the legal advice is saying that under the Local Rating Act, Local Government Rating Act, we can't estimate. So if there's a broken meter, say we're 2 years down the track and we've been charging based on volumetric, and then somebody's meter breaks during that period, the provisions that we had in the bylaw, which has been common across other bylaws, is that we estimate the consumption based on previous readings. We can't estimate consumption under the Rating Act because it says you must charge by what you've used. So what we're proposing to do there is amend the bylaw so that the charge is not a charge under the Rating Act, it's effectively a charge under the bylaw. So we're saying that if you have a broken meter, we will charge you a certain amount, and we'll have a calculation enabling us to do that. So it's a technical way of doing things, but it effectively means that we're shifting our jurisdiction from the Rating Act to the bylaw and the Local Government Act. So that applies if you've got a broken meter, but of course it also applies if you've got a shared connection, because if we go onto volumetric and we've got 4 connections off one supply, we're effectively estimating. We're saying that each of you will be equal from the totaliser. But that's not charging based on what people have actually consumed, because we don't know that.
Thank you.
A bit of a technical answer, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's a technical question.
Questions? Any further questions? Somebody prepared to move the recommendations that are listed for us? Moved by Councillor Bowyer, seconded by Councillor Holmes. Any discussion? Councillor Bowyer.
Karen, I'd like to thank you for your report and also the work that went on previously by Steph and her team. It's a fairly meaty document, okay? And I think the consultative period reflects that, especially the trade waste, which I think, I don't know if Tim, but certainly it took me a bit to get my head around why they were being treated differently. Also, there was considerable discussion about the impact on the Bill of Rights and how that fitted within everything, and I think we landed in the right space. So yeah, it's something it's a meaty piece of work, and it will have impacts over lots of different places, but I think we've landed in an appropriate space. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Nelson.
I just want to acknowledge Stephanie, who's been a number of sessions working with me, outside working around my timetable. It's very much appreciated.
Any further discussion? So we've had the recommendations moved, remembering that these is the page that we've got given. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Page 165, the Judge Road level crossing signage. Kane.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is to seek decision on whether Council should install temporary advisory signage for long vehicles at Judge Road until Kiriwell completes a permanent safety upgrade there. Bit of the background to why this has come to you. It was a request from our steering group, Judge Road steering group, that I look into this issue, which I've done. The primary safety concern here is a short stacking hazard. So this is where there's not enough space between the level crossing or the rail in Namatā Road for a long vehicle to safely wait. Kiriwell have a funded solution in the pipeline. It's to introduce a one-way system into Judges Road, only from Namatawa, which will remove the safety short stacking issue. Construction is expected towards the end of the year, is what I'm told, and we're in the process of looking at designs on that. Current hazard signage at the crossing now is compliant with the rules, so, and there's a picture of that in the report, so they have signed and hazard the issue, and that's compliant with the rail crossing standards. So what I'm recommending today to you is to install the advisory signage restricting vehicles over 11 metres, and put some early warning signage on the highway to also advise people that there's a no exit to long vehicles on Judge Road. But I have to make it clear that the signage is advisory only in this option, and it's not, doesn't have any enforcement with it. So there's no obligation for us to regulate this risk. This should respond to the steering group's concerns though on the issue. So next steps following today from your decision, if it's approved, will be to install the signage under current roading budgets, and then notify the steering group and Kiriwell. Take questions.
Thanks, Kane. Any questions to Kane? No, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just a question, because I'd like to talk to this afterwards. If this is approved, when would the signage be installed?
So I'll need to get the signs made up. So I'll order them, if it's approved today, I'll order them today with the signage wording, and it'll just probably be 3-4 weeks maybe, because it's got to go to Christchurch, and then the guys have got to program into their program, so maybe another couple of weeks after that, I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Holland.
Yeah, thanks, Kane. Just wondering, is there any liability on us if a vehicle longer than 11 metres parks there and then there's a subsequent accident?
It would be, I'm not sure. Currently the risk is hazard posted according to whatever the rail crossing TCD manual says, which is a signage manual for rail crossing, so it's compliant with that signs. So that's addressing the risk. What I'm suggesting we put here is not a regulatory sign, which is the red bordered ones. It's a advisory sign, which means we're just advising. So in my opinion, I don't think there's any risk because we're advising. Other than that, it's unsure. It would need to be tested.
Councillor Johnson?
Further to Tom's question though, would you say there's a possibility of reputational risk, given that MDC is aware of the problem and that Kiwi Rail is changing the safety measures there because of the problem? And my question is that we know about it, so I feel that there would be some reputational risk.
Yeah, everyone knows about the risk, and that's why it's signed that right now to say that long vehicles shouldn't. You should be aware of it and not stay on the crossing there before they or wait and move out. But yeah, the reputational risk. Everyone's aware of it, so I don't think there is any.
Any further questions? No further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation on page 165. Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Lennox. Discussion, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I'm part of the Judds Road steering group, as is Craig, and we feel that this is really important to support this recommendation, and the reason being that we know that there's a short stacking risk there. Kiwi Rail are going to address it formally, structurally, but I think we would be not looking after the best interests and the safety of our motorists if we didn't take this opportunity to put in an advisory sign which ups the ante on acknowledging that there is a risk there. And should something happen and we knew the risk was there, I just wouldn't want Masterton District Council to be in that position, acknowledging though that it's an advisory, not a regulatory sign, but at least it shows that we're doing something over and above what we need to do, just to point out that the short stacking is an issue.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the recommendation on page 165. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Kane. Page 170, dog fees. Corin.
Morena, Your Worship, councillors. So yes, this is our annual paper where we set the dog fees for the coming year. Just to note in terms of the recommendations, so we've got the recommendation that you receive the report, that you agree a penalty for lay payment for registration fees of 50%, agree that a $1 per dog registration goes to a scheme to fund to assist low-income people with the cost of desexing their dogs, and adopt the dog registration and associated fees for 25-26. Just to note that Section 37(4) of the Dog Control Act requires us to have regard to the relative costs of the registration and control of dogs in our district, and that's why we have this paper and set these fees. We need to set the fees no later than the 30th of May every year to enable us to generate the notices, have information out to the community in time for the registration fees to be set and for them to be payable by the 31st of July. The revenue and financing policy allows for 30% of those costs to come from rates, and we note in the report that there are individual and community benefits to dog ownership, and that's why we have that balance between rates and fees associated. And there are currently 5,971 dogs registered in our district, and in the previous year we had 1,939 dog-related call-outs or complaints in the year. And we'll take questions.
Okay, questions? Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Corin, and the team for the report. Just a couple of things. The Tag for Life, 3 years we've been looking into this. First question is, are we actually looking into it? And why we haven't had a discussion around it yet. Secondly is around the responsible dog owner fee. I understand that that's in place, but there's also other councils that have the over 65 companion fee, and why that hasn't been brought to the table for discussion as well. It's another thing we've talked about.
Sure.
The responsible dog owners are great. initiative, but looking at the criteria, it's quite strict, and I imagine many of the elderly or retirees in our area would not be able to get, have the funds or means to get their places up to standard. So yeah, just those two questions, please.
So the Tag for Life, we do keep an eye on that. The challenge that we have, and we've discussed this before, is that the visible tag is an immediate and easy way for a dog control officer or an animal control officer to actually see that an animal is registered and registered in the current year. And so to date, although we know that it is possible to go that other direction, our recommendation and belief is that it's not a handy way for us to go right now to actually enable the team to work in the district and control animals easily and work on that registration basis. To the second question, so we operate from the basis that we're with the RDO, Responsible Dog Owner, we're encouraging responsible dog ownership. Yes, we have discussed before, and we can discuss again, the concept of a discount based on age, in fact, but that's not our current approach. If we were to do that, we would need to bear in mind that, of course, any reduction in that space would need to be funded elsewhere. So that would mean either that fees for people who aren't in that senior area category would need to be higher, or we would need to take that from rates.
Okay, well, I'd love a discussion around it because I feel like it's sort of been mentioned a few times over the last 3 years. Just back to the Tag for Life, one more question. So have we talked to our friends in Masterton who seem to have that in place, both of these items I've raised, and taken some learnings from them?
Yep, we have. There's also a legislative requirement within the Dog Control Act that a new tag must be issued each year. So that hasn't been tested in court yet either, so we're watching that as well.
With Masterton?
No, not with Masterton. So I'm saying there's a legislative requirement in the Dog Control Act to issue a new tag to a dog owner every year. DIA have said that they will not take it to, are not going to enforce that from their side, but we haven't seen anything come through from a dog owner yet throughout the country about whether they insist on having a new dog tag or not each year.
Okay. So what's Masterton doing then? They have a tag for life?
Yes, they do. Yep.
So they're breaking the rules?
So each individual council can make a decision as to how they want to interpret that.
Okay.
Under the letter of the Act, that's very clear what it requires, but that's their decision to make, as it is our decision to make how we would approach that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, hi, thanks for your report. I noticed that last year you received 10k funding for desexing, but you had 56 applications, so it wasn't enough. And yet, the recommendation here is that we put $1 aside for each registration for desexing, which comes to 6,250, which won't be enough. So that kind of doesn't make sense.
We would intend to apply for funding in other avenues as well. So the dollar would support, the dollar from dog owners would support our applications from other funding agencies to get more.
So my next question is then, for example, using the 56 applications as an example, how much funding do you recommend would be required for a successful desexing on an annual basis? I know it would vary, but ballpark.
So this is new for us. So we were successful in getting that $10,000. So we did have a really good response. Previously we got $40,000 from the DIA. Yes, we still have some of that money available, but that was for a very limited niche number of dogs. So I would say. Yeah, it would really depend, but I would think hopefully between 15 and 25 might be enough.
Okay, so my next question is then, is $1 enough from registrations?
So, good question, Councillor. I mean, we were trying to strike a balance of not pulling too heavily on the fees that we bring in, but at the same point enable us when we go to other funders to actually demonstrate that council's putting in some and contributing. And just to note also the funding from Trust House was great that we got that.
But there's no guarantee.
And we were surprised and delighted to get it, right? So when we applied, we weren't guaranteed. It was the first time we tried it. So it was a great thing to have, and that gave us some learnings in terms of the demand, and we're seeking to build on that.
Yeah, my other thing is too that, maybe it's not enough, is the first thing. And the second thing is, is it a curve that will go down? Because the demand, I would have thought, should be highest at the beginning of introducing a plan like this, and then it should theoretically flatten out. Would that be the case, do you think?
We would hope that it would flatten out.
Yeah.
That would be the intention.
And is there still money available from DIA?
There is still a small amount of money available for the DIA.
Or new money, I mean?
No new money.
Okay.
Councillor Bowyer?
Just further to Councillor Johnson, what is the approximate cost per dog of doing this?
De-sexing?
De-sexing, yeah.
It ranges between... So it goes on weight and it goes on sex. So it can be about, I think it starts about 400, is that right, Gordon? And then you can go up to about 1,000. So it goes on the sex of the dog and the weight of the dog. So male dogs are cheaper, and obviously smaller dogs are cheaper.
$1,000 is a fair chunk of change, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's a vasectomy versus a hysterectomy.
Any further questions? Councillor Tudor?
Thank you for your report. I was very pleased to see the disability assisted dogs have a fee. Has this always been the case?
As far as I'm aware, it has been the case for a very long time. Yeah.
And do you have delinquent dog owners from this category?
Disability assisted?
No, yeah.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Somebody prepared to move the recommendation on page 171? Move Councillor Lana, seconded Councillor Bowyer. Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, well, with my rural hat on at the moment, I don't like the way the rural dogs get penalised again with another increase. Most rural dogs never come into town they might come to the vet, but they don't come into the office of the RSPCA or the council. So I just think I'd like to see a reduction in the rural rate. The other thing, one query I've got is that there's a lot of pig dogs out there too, and I'm not too sure whether they're registered at all, a lot of them. So I just think any further increases will be sort of... I just don't believe that there should be any more increase in rural farm registration costs, and I'm not happy to move it this year. I'm not happy to accept this year either, and I probably will vote against it, but I'd like to think next year that preference should be taken to rural dogs.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Johnson?
My comment would be that I think that we've undercooked the dollar per registration for de-sexing, because it would help in the future if more dogs were de-sexed, and that we review that perhaps on an annual basis.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Gordon, is it?
Just further to the previous comments, I mean, maybe we should just add $1 to all the fees, so that we could make a higher contribution to the de-sexing program. It would be easy to just add $1 now, wouldn't it?
If I could just say that, from my point of view, our dog fees are high. And I've said it every year, and I think for 15 years I've been on council, I believe that our dog fees are out of kilter with the other councils, and I still think that. One of the things that always strikes me is that we've got an ageing population in Masterton, and a lot of those people who are aged are on their own, and their dog is their best mate. And there's a reason, a lot of cases, for them living almost. The number of people who have said to me, older people who have come to me and said that without their dog they'd actually have nothing to live for. And they actually spend more money on looking after their dogs than they do on looking after themselves. So I have always had a problem with our dog fees. I believe that they're high enough as they are, and I would certainly not like to see any further increases. I do, however, take cognizance of the point about the demand for service in Masterton is significantly higher than the other councils, and the figures are laid out there and they are certainly higher, but I think we've come to the point where our dog fees are at as high as they should be, and I just would not like to see any further increase at all. That's my opinion. Any further discussion? Councillor Johnson?
Bearing that in mind, though, we'd have to change our pricing policy, because you notice that we're at 70-30, and an example, South Wairarapa is at 40%, 40-60. So that would need to come under review the next time, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
which is worth considering.
Yeah. The only thing is, I just said before, I think for the 15 years we've been on council, I've always argued that our dog fees are too high, and I still think they are. Councillor Nelson?
It's heartening to hear that you've got these fees and the burden that they place upon people in your point that you made before, and I'm hopeful to see that you consider the burden that's placed upon ratepayers in other areas of other decisions that we make. It's heartening to see that you care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I don't quite know how to reply to that, but I'll leave others to think about that. Okay, any further? Okay, the recommendations are there. They've been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again? Okay, we move to page 1. David and Councillor Lennox against. I must say that I'm not voting against on the basis that I'll just keep bringing this up year after year. Thank you. We now move to page 180.
Like a dog with a bone.
Dog with a bone, that's the one. Page 83, the Rimataka Road Action Group, letter of support. Karen.
I'll hand over to that.
Matt.
I'll keep this short like the report itself. So we're just seeking council to either endorse or not endorse a letter of support for the Rimataka Road Action Group. So obviously the Rimataka Road Action Group has been in operation a little while now, pushing for Waka Kotahi to take another look at the Rimataka Hill Road. So this has come to us. So my understanding is the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee endorsed a letter of support, but that was responded to by Waka Kotahi saying they can't accept it and it needs to come from each of the constituent councils. Now obviously some councils in the leadership group are more affected by this than others, so we received a request to draft one from a Masterton perspective. So in the letter itself you can see that we've focused on basically having a look at this issue again, not advocating for any one approach or solution to the road, but looking at it as an issue and just kind of laying out some facts. So we know there's been increased usage and demand. Those demand figures are taken from earlier in the year as well. Obviously with the train issues, we probably expect that more people are using the Rimataka Hill Road. Ongoing safety concerns, we know the hill is a dangerous road. Waka Kotahi point that out themselves that it's one of the most dangerous highways in New Zealand. Obviously it's an essential regional lifeline. If that hill was to be closed for an extended period of time, to get to Wellington we would have to take the long way round. And also the economic development links. So I think it was 2 audit and risk committees ago that Anna came and spoke about the impact of the hill shutting on a Saturday morning for some events that were being hosted in the Wairarapa. So essentially this letter of support says that the council wants the road to become a road of national significance, and that would then place it higher in Waka Kotahi's sort of hierarchy of how they investigate roads, and then would allow them to take a further look at what could be done to improve it, whether that might be safety improvements to the existing route or different approaches to a route. So yeah, so we're just asking either you endorse, and it'll be signed by the Mayor and provided to the Road Action Group and also to Waka Kotahi.
Questions for Matt? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. With the Manawatu Gorge Road being set up, do you think it might reduce the chances of this being successful? Like, I turn right every single day and the traffic's really heavy in the morning. It's probably going to get lighter. What do you think the impact of that might be on this letter?
I think in terms of the demand it might fall, but I think in terms of the importance, the road remains important. Even before the closure of the gorge, we were seeing an increase as there was more traffic coming directly over from Wellington. It will be interesting though to see the impact of that road opening on the people coming down from the Hawke's Bay and whether they choose to shoot across and then take State Highway 1 or whether they continue to come down State Highway 2. I guess that probably plays into the economic development point as well. If the road remains as it is, it's going to be less of an option for people and the damage that could do for the wider region.
And just what would be the best thing that could come out of this letter?
That the government would go, okay, we will have another look at this. I know Minister Bishop has signalled that they're not, but I know, I believe Masterton have done a letter like this, us doing a letter like this. I know obviously there's support around the Regional Leadership Committee table, so it's that continued discussion, and I guess Masterton putting forward a letter like this shows it endorses that discussion and recognises the importance of the road.
Thank you. Can I ask Craig a question? Am I allowed to? What would you like? What do you see?
Craig is going to speak now, I think.
I'll ask a question and then I'll speak.
Okay. What would be the best outcome that you can see coming out of this?
Best outcome is that in the end it becomes a road of national significance. But at the moment we just want to see an appropriate study done on it. Okay, what are the best alternatives? And we have no set. The group has no set desire for any specific alternative. But we see it as key for the Wairarapa as a whole. Yeah, really do. And just want to push it. We know it will take time. This is not a 5-year thing. This is a 20-year time span, possibly even more. But if we don't start the discussion now, then the discussion will never happen. So yeah.
And just one more question, if I may. Is there another example of a road like this in New Zealand that is of such significance to a region that has been given this increased status that you can think of recently?
Not that I can see recently. I know that the road to Cape Palliser did receive an increased recognition for I think it's a road of regional significance, and that allowed them to have more access to funding for repairs. I don't know of any. I can't say I've looked into it greatly. I don't know of any case.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Craig.
Councillor Bayer?
No, I've got a question. And then I can...
Yeah, you got the question.
So the question is, just to confirm, this group is not looking for any form of funding, no monetary contributions, it's just looking for a letter of support.
No, we've received no request, and obviously just to reiterate, because it is a state highway, the road is funded by Waka Kotahi and not by local rates.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox.
Thank you, Matt. After listening to Shane Jones the other day, this is definitely not on his radar unless we vote him back in next election. However, what consultational collaboration are we doing with Mike Butterick? How's he been involved in this? Because he's clearly our voice for...
So I don't know at council officer level if there's been any engagement. Elected member level, I can't speak to whether people have personal engagement. I believe the Road Action Group has probably spoken to Mike Butterick about this. At this stage, they're kind of the ones pushing it forward. So this letter kind of gives them support without Masterton Council stepping in to kind of lead that work, which I think is important. Because it's a regional thing, we kind of don't want to lead it ourselves, I wouldn't think.
But I guess a word to the community would be, if this is something that they're passionate about or they see the need, just to get quite vocal about it and make their own sort of
yeah, definitely. I mean the highway across the Tararua Highway that's about to open is an example of the community, one, pushing for a new road, and then two, pushing back when that road was about to be a toll road. So I think it does show that community can have a voice and can make a difference.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Any further questions? Councillor John.
Yes, thank you, Gary, and thanks, Matt, for your paper. It's more of a, I just want to say that Rangitāne Te Maira supports this potential road, this project. It has been quite vocal about it amongst our whānau, And so I just want to say that, state that here and now, and that I think the government has actually talked about future policies for roading, as they have actually talked about consideration of tolling, and we are okay about that. So I just wanted to put some support in around you and this council around the letter of support, even though I'm not required to do it.
Thank you, Joan. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Just on the question, is the letter from the other two councils really similar to our one?
Is the letter from the other?
The other two councils have done letters as well, haven't they?
Yep.
Is it the same?
I was going to mention that in discussion. At the mayoral forum, this was discussed, and every single council of the 9 were all writing letters with endorsement.
To answer that though, Tim, no, I drafted this essentially myself, basically wanting to just lean heavily on the facts that we know of instead of trying to put feelings behind it essentially. So pointing out the facts, things that have been stated as a reason we think that investigation should go further.
Yeah, I just think that carries much more weight when you do it that way. You've done the letter on behalf of us as opposed to just a form letter that's come out from Hawkery.
Any further questions? Somebody prepared to move the recommendation on page 183, moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Councillor Holmes. Any discussion? Councillor Bowyer.
Thank you. Just want to address a couple of things. We talked about Mike Budrick being involved. So Mike has been involved in the process all the way through it. He has struggles with his support, would be the way I would put it. But he can see the long-term benefits of going forward. Okay, so Kieran McAnally has also been involved. There's considerable support politically. We're just trying to get more political support behind. And the reason I'll give you that is that, Tim, you brought up about, was there another road like this? It's actually one north of New Plymouth, the Mount Messenger bypass, which is currently being done now. Now that's a 6.5 kilometre road, windy, very much like the Rumataka Hill here. And going in there is a 250 metre tunnel, a 130 odd metre long bridge and another 30 metre bridge. This is all being done for a traffic count of 3,000 vehicles a day. And over 7,000 vehicles a day go over the Rumatakas. Okay? Now, I cannot confirm this, but the way I see it, that got considerable political support from all the councils and all the MPs, and that took a long time to get through, okay? But that road is currently being done, as I say, 6.5 k's. If you overlap 6.5 k's over the Rumatakas, it's basically the same length of road. Okay, and this is up there, it's blowing out. That originally was a $280 million project, okay? We talked about that. Now, we talked about at Woodville, the new road going across, how that will affect. You actually have a look on, they're called AADT data loggers in the roads. You can get on the website and have a look and actually see the daily traffic counts and the average traffic counts. No one really turns off now, okay? Even with that. There is a genuine fear of the Rumataka Road. I'm not saying no one does, but I've got friends in the Bay and they just wouldn't go near the Rumatakas. And I think that's a perception from times gone by. It's actually, the NCTA do a good job of maintaining it at the moment, and even though it's closed a lot and stuff like that. So just to follow on from that, a resilience study was done by WSP as to if there was a major earthquake here and the road was shut for 6 months. That would see the GDP of the Wairarapa reduce by over $300 million a year. Okay? The study we have done, which is on our website, is that over a 20-year period we would see a net quantifiable economic benefit of around $8 billion. Okay? A new road will increase our resilience and give us a viable alternative to State Highway 1. It will eliminate almost all road accidents. The 14-kilometre existing road has had 5 fatals and 29 serious accidents over the years. On a GDP and for economic development of the Wairarapa, we believe it will help bring more businesses here. The ability to get produce across that hill more effectively, more economically, I think would be a great benefit. Okay? Would also help us attract more people to our medical services here, the ability to get to Wellington easily. We believe tourism will also increase, and Wairarapa-based events will certainly attract more people. And we heard that Destination Wairarapa with the road closing, hardly anyone showed up to Martinborough for some events. So I believe it's a worthwhile cause continuing with. I know it's going to be a long battle, but I would like to be around to see something happen, and I would certainly appreciate this council endorsing this letter.
Thank you. Councillor Toote.
May I ask Craig a question?
Yes.
Have you discussed a toll?
We specifically haven't discussed a toll, but it is in our documentation that for this road to probably go forward, if it was to be a tunnel, would need to be tolled. However, there are various options. You've seen with the new road across the new gorge replacement, you know, they are doing cuts of about 160 odd metres. So we're not, if you were to put a cutting in at the top, we're not talking about engineering that hasn't been done in this country. No one's asking for new technologies to be imported from Europe where these things happen every day of the week. So it is entirely up for play. This is part of that discussion, how we go forward.
Any further discussion, Councillor Nelson?
Just a question for Craig. In the road in New Plymouth you talked about, is there an option, like it's not a great option that we have, but it's still an option. Is there an option for that road up in New Plymouth?
Option is in...
You know, how we have to go north and we cut across?
There is an option, but it's nowhere near the time difference here. You know, if this one shuts, it's 3 hours by the time.
So their option's a better option?
Yeah, their options. The only one we've found that could be close to it is the Brynderwins. It's happening now. But again, it's not a time. It was only a 45-minute change, yeah.
And for when we do these sorts of roads, is there a criteria that the ministry goes through? Like, this has to happen, this has to happen?
Yeah.
So where would we fit in that criteria?
Well, early on, back in the early 90s, we were in the top 10 of roads to be done, okay? And then it was my belief that the lack of political desire to get this to happen meant a continued slip down the road to where it's basically not even thought of now. So, yeah, I think it's going to be there.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Goodwin.
I do have to add a comment to what Craig said, because David, you'd probably remember in the early 2000s the CE telling us that we should be very grateful and get our roading up to spec, because we were getting more than our share, and that the metropolitans were going to have a catch-up, and that's exactly what's happened, and that's why we've slipped down the list.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Is there discussion? Councillor Holmes?
I think this is a wonderful idea. It's only getting on the list of people, and it's informing the people above us that we want to do something. So I think it's a great idea, and if probably it'll be a 30-year deal rather than a 20-year deal, I think.
Any further discussion? Councillor Lennox?
Cool, thank you. I totally endorse this letter, and just, Craig, thank you to your group that's pushing us. And if you need someone to make some more noise for you, I'm quite good at doing that as well, so happy to help out.
Thank you. Okay, we have the recommendation that we support the letter. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And thank you, Craig, for your work you have done on this.
Thank you.
Page 187, the Opaki Water Race, confirmation of assistance to users. Matt? No? Phil?
Good morning, councillors. Let me share this one. So this, I'll take the paper as read. This is a follow-up to the workshop that the committee had with the elected members back in February, looking at what level of assistance we can provide them to pursue their own resource consent applications for the Opaki Water Race. I'll just note a couple of things really. There's limitation. We're proposing some limitations around how much assistance that actually is, in terms of a few hours a week and up to $50,000 in terms of real costs. Normally that money is ring-fenced to the users, but we'll take this from the operational budget. We'll have to find the money from somewhere else. There's also a couple of off-ramps, so we'll be looking for the committee to make some commitments in terms of getting themselves set up into an organisation and making some financial commitments as well. And off-ramps later on in the year if they haven't got work in place by November. So, as I say, take the report as read. I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Phil. Questions? Councillor Lennox.
Thank you, Phil. Just a query around the proposal commencement date was the 1st of May, which was 14 days ago, yet we're deciding on it today.
We've been working on this report for a wee while, but we have been working with the committee recently. We've got someone engaged that's doing some discovery work around the background and what would need to be done for a resource consent. So Naz and myself have got that lined up now. So we have been working with them for some time.
So it's okay to vote on something that's actually now in the past? Like, is that an okay thing to do?
It's a valid question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Like, we're going to vote on something that actually started on the 1st of May, yet we haven't agreed on it.
It says here the hours to be expended after a 6-month period from the 1st of May. So we're still in the 6-month period. So we're still. I see what you're saying. You're saying.
No, sorry. It's just I'm querying. We're going to vote yes or no to something that's already started. That's my query.
We're responding to council direction. We have acted on that direction straight away. Through that direction to assess, we've obviously realised that we need some clarification about that, what that is. If there is no support for this, then we'll obviously change how we are assisting, consistent with your direction today. So
I just thought I would say commencement date maybe the 15th of May or 4th, after we've actually voted for it. Just a query, I'm just interested. The next thing was just around, you talk about the 50k and that you had concerns around any unknowns that might arise, but one would think that the closing plan would have a contingency fund, so therefore we wouldn't need to dive into 50k for this group of people.
So we're still working on the closure management plan at the moment, so that's a piece of work we have to continue to do to meet the conditions of the existing consent.
But that has its own budget?
It has its own budget when it gets around there. So if we get to a point where we can stop doing that, or stop spending money in that space, and then we'll be able to allocate some funds towards that.
So there is a small budget for that work because we don't know what the outcomes will be until we get the report. So we only have, we've got 100 grand budgeted for the next financial year for the closure.
Perfect.
How much does that mean?
100,000.
For the closure report?
For the closure.
For the closure.
So we're developing a closure management plan, which will be approved by GW, and there'll be some actions to actually do as part of that closure. And so the $100,000 is to fund those actions.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's my two questions.
Any further questions? Councillor Goodman.
I'm just, initially I'm concerned that the user group don't seem to be involved in this decision. Whereas when I look at page 214, which is the memorandum of understanding we have with them, it says that they will be involved with all key decisions we make. And to me this is a key one in that we hadn't, when my last recollections are that certainly among some other councillors, we thought there was a bit of a case for some one-off assistance if we could help them get a consent and then pay their own way. And the quantum of that, we don't know. And for me, when I look at 3 hours and 50k, it seems less than I know some councillors were thinking of in terms of assistance, and putting that in the framework of the 1 million a year we have on economic development. So just can you tell me why the OPACI group are not involved and don't seem to be involved in this?
Thank you, Councillor. So they are involved. We've been communicating with them as to what we're doing right the way through. Naz and myself have met with them, and we do talk to them on a regular basis, the committee. So they know what we're doing, and we've explained to them what we're proposing at this point. But it's still the council's decision to make, Councillor. So.
Yes, but did you get any feedback? I mean, to me, it's sort of finding out, look, if they're prepared to build storage and all the other things we know they have to do, which is quite a big job, I just want to know if this is, what their reaction to this proposal is.
Yes, Councillor, I think, as Phil says, we have been on this as a journey with the Otago Waterways Committee. They would want us to do all of the work and pay for everything, obviously. So this is kind of a middle road. We did say when we had the workshop and we provided that direction that there is no funding for this work. It is not included in our work program. So it's all in addition to what the team are currently undertaking. We feel it is a reasonable offering,
Okay, so
but it is for you to consider.
So are you saying that this is a midpoint? I mean, I didn't hear them say, but I'm a bit hard of hearing that they wanted us to pay all the costs. I thought they were quite interested in contributing, but since they're not here, I'm asking you, is this a midpoint, do you think, between...
Well, we feel that it is a reasonable offering.
It's different to what I...
We don't know what the midpoint is because we don't know actually how much all of this work is going to cost. Very, similar to the closure management pay. We've got a tentative figure in the budget, but we don't know for sure what that number is going to be. Likewise with this process. So this was to try to assist them to get it moving, potentially bring in some external resources because there'll be specialised skills that will be needed, and to help them with some project work.
I don't know, it just seems to me that 3 hours a week, and the vast number of hours we have in our capacity, is not very much.
We have a vast remit in the Infrastructure and Assets Group which is dedicated to work that has already been approved by Council.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Nelson.
So just to clarify in my mind, this is a response to the workshop that we had. Waterways people came and presented that, but they're not aware of anything in this at the moment.
They are aware of it, so we've had a meeting with them.
Yep.
Initially I was talking about a lower sum. They were quite keen to see if we could explore an opening of 50,000, and we were clear around limited resources and us nominating a number of hours for you all to consider.
And what was their feedback to this?
They didn't really provide any feedback, but that is a result of previous discussions that we've had with them.
Any further questions? Councillor Lennox?
Was the group invited to come to the meeting today? I know it's a public meeting and people can find out for themselves, but are they aware that this is actually on the agenda? Were they informed?
They were on the agenda. We did share this with them. I didn't invite them per se.
Okay, but the agenda has been shared with them personally.
Well, the paper has been shared with them. We didn't invite them.
Oh no, that's cool. Just as
Yeah,
long as
okay.
they've been given exactly what we've got. Yeah, cool.
Because we are responding to direction that you all provided
Yeah, no,
us.
definitely. No, that's all good.
Workshop.
Any further questions? Councillor Helena.
Yeah, thanks, Master, you and your team for responding to our direction on this. So just to be clear, this plan in terms of support and funding, they've received it the users have received it, but we haven't sought or we don't know what their feedback.
That's right. They've received it as for their information. This is a commitment we made to them. We told them we were going to be presenting this, and they've received it.
Okay, and my understanding was from that meeting that the council, the elected members there were very encouraging of council to be working together with the user groups to find a shared solutions. And I know discussions have taken place. But we have, so to be succinct, we haven't had any feedback from them on this plan. Is that the case? On the supports that that we're being asked to decide upon today?
Not specifically.
Not specific.
But I do recall in the workshop they made it pretty clear that what they were asking for was assistance on their consent application. They've decided that that is the way that they want to proceed.
And that will be the
To
3
apply
hours
for
per
a
week.
consent.
Okay. And in terms of there's a closure report and then potentially a closure action, right?
That report will provide a number of things that we will have to do to essentially deliver on the existing consent that we have.
Who writes the closure report?
So we have a freshwater ecologist working on that for us at the moment. So once he's done that'll go to GW for their...
They've started on that?
Yes.
Well, what's the cost of that report?
There's a $35,000 piece of work.
And then the potential closure, we've put aside 100 grand, but that could be even more.
Well, we don't
Several
know.
hundred
We
grand.
won't know until we see the closure management plan. It may be enough, it may not be. And there may be some efficiencies that we can gain by working in parallel. So there'll be some things that the committee will need to provide and work on as part of the application process. There may be similar things that we are required to do to close the race, so there may be a point where we can converge and share some of that work.
So is there a possibility that a further consent might be issued to keep the race open?
Not for council. We are working under the existing consent.
Yeah, but collectively, the water race users want to keep this race open. Yes?
So that, yes, and
Or they want support to find an alternative water resource.
no, they are wanting to make application for their own consent to abstract. So it's a separate thing. I think they have considered and looked at some alternatives.
And in the same time, we're preparing to close it, which could cost in excess of 100,000 plus the report, which is 35,000.
Could it?
And yet it might stay open.
That's right, but the closure is actually council delivering on the existing consent that we've got and moving away from it. Where the application is from another entity is for abstraction. It's not to keep it open.
What does abstraction mean?
To take water from the river or divert it for their purposes.
It's not to keep the current race open.
Well, it's. I think it's semantics. It's kind of the same thing. It's got to be open, but you can't take without having a resource consent. We have a resource consent which is due to expire, has a set of conditions which we are working to, which essentially is to close the race.
Yeah, I understand it, but for me the timings are the things that are problematic, because it seems to me there's going to be a lot of expense in a report, a closure report, and then a potential closure, and on the other hand, another organisation wanting to keep it open. And if we could get the decision on the race first, we could potentially save a lot of money around the closure, if it doesn't have to go ahead.
We will be.
That's my question.
Yes, understand. So the consent we've got in place is to close. So we have to deliver on that. The application, there are definitely going to be complexities because we will all need to work with the regional council to work out what we cannot do as a result of the application.
So can both parties work with the regional council to find a solution, and so there's not this conflict between closing and keeping it open or abstracting from it?
Well, we will definitely be working with regional council, so that's kind of the purpose.
Collectively, I mean.
Yeah, that's the purpose of
With the user groups.
We're going to set up a little project team, so that's the purpose of the project team. But they are two separate individual things.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but there's a huge waste if they both happen together and the race gets permitted to be, if the users are allowed to continue to extract water from the river or the race, and we're putting all this effort around closure, it's a waste of money in my view. But I know it's question time. I'll come to that after we perhaps vote. Just my last question is, my understanding there's been a report commissioned called the Discovery Report. Is that the closure report or is that a different report?
That's a report we've commissioned just to help inform the committee about what they will need to do to prepare a resource consent application.
Has that report been completed?
It's in I think,
No, we've got the draft. So we intend to meet with the committee about that next week. That will almost sort of set the scope for the project.
Okay. And what was the cost of that report?
I think it was
Less than $5,000.
$5,000. And so that report will have useful insights or information in it for you guys, the water users, and us as elected members needing to make this decision?
Yeah, well, the report is designed to identify the complexities and the challenges and the different points where both tasks that we try to achieve need to come together.
Which would give us a better indication of actual costs.
Once we start doing the work to deliver on that, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lena.
Gary?
Yes, Councillor Hunt.
Is that the Janine Drake report on the discovery, is it?
Yes, June Drake, yeah. Great council.
Thank you. Any further, Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. So there's, so that project group you're talking about, that's the closing group and the opening group working together to come up with a solution. It's not, there's a group over here doing one thing, there's a group over here doing another thing.
No, that's right. There'll be a couple, they can nominate who they want. It will be our resource, and I will be in there a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 187, 188. Move Councillor Hunt, second Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Yes, David?
I think this is a good start, even though it probably won't be enough for them, but I think it's a good start, realising that they're going to be committing some finances personally themselves, and I think they can keep the costs down by, I know for a fact Tom Waters is providing some names of people to do a lot of the work on the disposing or getting rid of any fish in the water race as if it is closed. Now this has all come about because of the national policy statement, and I was a member of the Rimahanga Whaitua that set these rules up, and I must say there was a huge amount of debate over this subject, and we put a clause in there called the non-consumptive take. Non-consumptive take is taking water out of the river and being returned to the river downstream. And this also applies to Henley Lake and Memorial Lake here in Masterton. I'm concerned of the closure costs estimated at $104,000 when I know there was a quote for $7,000 100 metres for the removal of fish and eels. Fish and Game, who initially wanted the race closed, have now changed their mind, and I believe iwi are happy for it to stay open subject to conditions. Matahiwi Vineyard has made it quite clear that if the race is closed, they will close. This is a business that creates $5 million to the Masterton's economy, employs many people with a $2 million wage bill, plus all the servicing and for the machinery in the vineyard. If the race is retained, they are happy to construct a reservoir for irrigation when required for storage in the summer, but they will store the water in the winter high flows. Matahiwi and Le Gras have put a paki on the map as providing entertainment in summer months. Incidentally, Le Gras use the water in winter for frost protection. The non-notified consents are going to cost $19,654, and it's on page 207. I'd remind members of Rule R1. It states that the take and use of water shall not occur below the minimum flow with the exception of water races for the purpose of supplying water for the health needs of people and animal drinking water, including the minimum necessary to maintain the function of the water race. Health needs of people is defined as the amount of water required to adequately provide for people, hygiene, sanitary and domestic requirements. the promise of the Wakamoku failing, Council promised assisting to find an alternative. This is the MOU on the 19th of May 1921. And I think the big beauty of this, if it goes ahead and the race is retained to be open, the reality is that these people, the committee who run it, are members and users of the water race. And the example I'll use now, which happened this winter, the water race stopped on a Friday in the heat of the summer, and there was no water went down it for a long time, and one of the farmers down there had to move his cattle out because there was no water for them, because the people running the water race at the moment had the weekend off. Now, if that was a situation where the farmers ran it themselves, that would not happen. And I just think that as much as rules are rules, I think it's important that this race is kept open. And I must admit, we've already had a meeting with Greater Wellington, and a very good response for that, but there's rules and regulations that we adhere to. And one of the rules at the moment is that the inlet, the inlet is not up to scratch, so that's going to have to be fixed, and I believe they have done that to a degree already. But I think it would be absolutely criminal for this council to allow that water race, which has been going for over 100 years, it would be criminal for it to be closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion, Councillor Lennings?
Yes, thank you, David. I'd like to mirror what you've said. I won't mirror it exactly, but I agree with what you've said. And I think the bigger picture here is that the positive effects this water race has on our community versus the issues we face from a sort of legislative and all that malarkey, bureaucratic state outweigh that. So, yeah, I'm definitely in support of the group and what we've got in front of us today.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Karen. Well, that was well prepared as you are, David, but I've just gone back to my notes from when they did come in, and there was discussion around the irony of cutting off a water supply during a time in which we need water storage facilities. There was mentioned around the economic risks of shutting it down as well. They're only ever going to take water when it was times of high flow, which is what you've just reiterated there as well. And they were prepared, the group was prepared to cover the consent and the running of the water scheme all themselves, weren't they? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any further discussion? Councillor Helena?
My view is we delay approving this. My personal view is that we should be looking to invest more time and more money supporting this initiative. I think we have an ethical responsibility to ensure that the current users continue to get the supply of water. As we know, the potential risk is to a number of the businesses that need that water is that they will close and jobs will be lost. And that water race has been running now for, I think, over 120 years. And for me, I think it's quite criminal to cut it off now. Now, I know, Maz, you've walked into it and you've walked into compressed time frames. But I remember my first year prior to the election for this triennium, a few of us went out and visited the race. It was a topic of interest. And probably 6 months later, we were informed by council officers that the water users were accepting of the race closing. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at the video of one of these meetings back then. And one of our elected members stood up, because I questioned it, because I was surprised by that, stood up and said, yeah, that's the case. Subsequent, or in recent times, they've strongly informed us they weren't happy with that decision, unless there was an alternative to be provided. And they were all of the understanding that from the previous council that an alternative would be provided, which was then, they were looking at potentially Whakamoika. So I think our processes have let these guys down, and now it has compounded in a we have to close it down, but we're trying to keep it open situation, which is I understand is very complex, and I know people in your team, Maz, are incredibly busy, but these are the livelihoods of people we're talking about, just like the people out at Tinui when we voted to support them. So I guess for me, in addition to the other points that have been made, I would like us to postpone this decision until we have full information, until, for example, a discovery report, we have further information around the cost of closure. And if that means having a discussion with Greater Wellington, let's go and do it. And we make sure that our users have that additional information too. So we've got a reasonable idea that the supports we're offering will actually do the trick. Because I think at the moment we're just guessing around 50,000 and 3 hours a week. It could well be more than that. It could be less. So I will not be supporting the motion. I would actually like to make an amendment that we postpone this decision until we have full information and we have feedback from the users group.
Responding that that's not an amendment, that's a direct negative. But that wouldn't be an amendment because that wouldn't be a proposal for a direct negative to.
Tell me what the process is.
But you put the motion, and if it goes ahead, it goes ahead. If it doesn't, then that'll be a decision around the table, and then we could follow up with that.
Then we could make that.
Yeah, then you could make another one.
Okay, Councillor Goodwin.
Could I just ask a bit of office for advice, Harriet or Karen? Can you just give me the standing order motion that would fit? Because I too support what Councillor Helena has said, and there's a standard motion, which I can't remember, I'm embarrassed to say, about receiving this report and letting it lie on the table, something like that. Can you, it's around about 16 or something. I can't remember.
Karen.
We could pause and have an
Okay.
Can I just,
Councillor Johnson.
just before that though, can I just ask what the implications of that would be, Maz?
Yes, good question. Well, there will need to be work to be done, which is not resourced or funded for it. So clarification around how you would like us to deal with that would be very helpful.
Today's request is asking for funding and allocation of resources to do this work. So we're not deciding on whether or not the Opaki waterway stays open or closes. It's about resourcing it up so we can support the user group to proceed in submitting their application. And I totally hear Councillor Helena. We don't want to duplicate or spend any additional costs in trying to contradict what we're, or work against, I suppose, what our guidance is here is to support. So really we need that funded and allocated. We don't have any, it's as simple as that. If you think we need more funding, absolutely, we can.
But we don't know if we need more funding until we have full information and hear back from the group in terms of what's actually involved.
Yeah, we know it's going to cost to do this work, so.
We have to do that anyway, though, don't we?
Just
The question that I ask is, why haven't we got the Genevieve Drake's report now? I believe it's out. We haven't been given it today. The discovery report.
Oh, well, I only received it a few days ago and I have not reviewed it.
I know that, but I think that's going to be quite important, Naz, to be quite honest. And I think that I'm disappointed we haven't had it today.
So where are we at, Karen?
Propose an adjournment if that's what the meeting decides they want us to explore.
Yeah, we were going to have 10 minutes after this particular item anyway, so we'll have the 10 minutes now and we'll come back and get some rulings on what we can do. Okay, now we resume the council meeting and we're going to start by getting some advice from Karen on the whole thing.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a clarification of a couple of points, given the conversation, the way the conversation has been going around the table, that as the Chief Executive said, the paper is to request permission to continue to work with the user group around developing our proposal so that we're all consistent, and there is opportunity further down the track as to when we get to the point of understanding what we required to come back to council to provide some more information there. If we don't have that approval today under the paper, then it's effectively not saying that we can continue to work and how much we are going to be doing to how much work that we will be allowed to devote to this. So effectively that means no work. So my suggestion would be that we would need to have some approval to continue with that, just so that we can get to the point that we all want to get to. So, and just being really clear that the decision for the it's the nomenclature that's inaccurate about us closing races and keeping them open. Of course, it's as Maz has said, that actually it's around having a consent to take water out. There's no physical opening and closing of the race, so we had a consent to take the water out, and now we have a consent to not take the water out over a period of time, and we're working to the point where we can not take that out. So just being really clear for people who may be listening online and the public around what that actually means. So the decision that council took to close the race was following a consultation with the community. So if there is any now mood that we do not want to continue down that track, we will need to do quite a significant amount of work around that consent and around consulting with the community again. As I think we say in the report, that up till now we've been operating on the basis that the charges that are required around the water race are paid for by the users. This is requesting additional money that's not going to be on charge to the users. So just to be clear about that difference and why we're specifically asking for that, because at the moment it's around being cost neutral. So just in terms of procedural matters, if you wanted to pause and didn't want to continue with the discussion today, the amendment, we can't have an amendment which is a direct negative under Standing Order 23.5F. So to not continue with that motion and to pause would be a direct negative. What we could do instead, as Harriet has pointed out, is have a procedural motion to leave the item effectively on the table and not have any more discussion or debate about that. So somebody who hasn't spoken, and I think that may be Your Worship, Councillor Tutor, I think everybody else around the table has spoken on the matter, would put the motion under Standing Order 25.2D, which is a member who has not spoken on the matter may move any one of the following procedural motions to close or adjourn the debate, and that's the item of business being discussed should lie on the table and not be further discussed at this meeting. Items lying on the table at the end of the triennium will be deemed to have expired. So we could put in there a condition around it wouldn't be discussed any further at the meeting, and until such a point that, and then if you want officers to report back on further information or a particular point in the future, we can add that into that motion.
And saying that, then no work will be done on it.
The implications of doing that is that we wouldn't have approval to continue with the work, and not knowing how much to spend, if anything.
But if it came back to the meeting and whenever meetings are 2 or 3 weeks, what would we be losing?
What would you be asking officers to do in that meantime? What would we be reporting back on in a few weeks' time?
It might be interesting. I mean, I'm not sure what I'd be asking officers to do, but certainly amongst members, I think there would be, I get the feeling, I don't know, that there's room for a bit more discussion about this issue, given that as the report says, up until now, there has been no cost to this council whatsoever. The entire costs are paid by the users. And as I said earlier, I know talking to some members, out of a budget of $1 million for economic development, some of us are sympathetic to spending some of that in a one-off if it progresses the wishes of that group.
We may like just to increase the money, you may wish to, so that we can crack on. Otherwise it's going to stall and it's going to delay and nothing will be done. So,
well, should we describe the
Hang on, I think we
of
did
3
this.
hours per week?
David Holmes is going to make a recommendation. David has moved this, so David...
I moved the original, and I want to make an amendment, and I've talked to Tom about it, and we're suggesting that we lift the hours to 32 hours a week.
How many?
32.
A month.
1 day a week.
A month, sorry. A month. Yeah, sorry. I was being but I cut the time back 3 months. and $100,000 if needed.
Up to.
Up to $100,000.
Stella, you seconded. Are you happy with that?
I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
So we need to get the ball.
I think we must realise that this whole race, unless we do something, will close next June.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's only a year away.
Yeah. Okay, we have there's a new amendment of that, and it comes in under recommendation 4, that we agree that council, we've moved the hours up to 32 hours a month, and down in 6, we agree that council will continue up to a total of 100,000 of direct financial support. That's what you're looking for, David?
Thank you.
And I second that.
I have a seconder in Councillor Lennox. Have we got any further discussion? Councillor Goodman.
Yeah, just can we readdress this? I mean,
Can you stand up, please?
Oh, sorry. I like the direction it's going, but we're sort of plucking numbers out of the air, which I wouldn't want to sort of advance on that basis. All I'm saying is, can we make provision to amend this down the track if we see fit to amend these amounts?
The word up. That's the word up to. Control that.
Is that what it said?
Yeah, up to.
Up to 100,000. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yep. All right.
Happy with that?
I'm happy with that. Yep.
Okay, so we have the motion, which is, very clearly, we now have number 4 changed to 32 hours a month, number 6 changed up to a total of 100,000, moved by Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Lennox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now go on to page 216, the local purpose reserve classification. Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a procedural paper seeking council agreement to remedy some classification issues with a reserve so that we can grant a right-of-way easement and complete the planning process for a subdivision. So back in 2018, council agreed to allow a road access through a small area of reserve created by the subdivision behind the Copthorne Hotel. And when I say reserve, it's an area of grass effectively running alongside the roadway. It's relatively small in nature, so small it didn't even get a name, unfortunately. That's why we keep calling it just the legal name of Lot 18 Deposited Plan. So the subdivision went ahead. There is a retirement village in that subdivision behind the Copthorne Hotel, and the access way has been built, and so we're at the end of the process now, and the developer is looking for us to issue the Section 224s so that individual titles can be issued for the homeowners within the retirement village. The original consent condition was that that access way into the subdivision would then vest to council as a road, and officers have subsequently indicated to the developer that we do not want to add that access way onto our roading network. The fact is that the access way really goes from a cul-de-sac to more of a cul-de-sac. The public will likely not be using that access way. The access way has been built so that it complements the private access and roadways within the subdivision, so its look and feel is quite different to a normal road, and the lighting matches with that too, and so officers' view is that actually it's more appropriate for that access way to remain as an access way through the reserve rather than legally vesting as a road and then it becoming our assets. So the developer has agreed with that and has put in an application for an RMA section 127 to vary that consent condition that it vests as a road, and that has been approved today and will be issued today. Just to be aware that there are a number of different council hats being worn with this particular decision. So we've got council as the planning consent authority, the planners doing the subdivisions and issuing the variations of consent. We've got council as landowner. We own that land. We have council as the administering authority under the Reserves Act because that piece of land is a reserve. And we also have council acting under delegation from the Minister of Conservation around granting easement rights and classifying reserves. So there's a whole bunch of different things. So we have to be really clear in our process who is making the decision under what particular hat. So we need, like I say, it's a procedural decision. We first need council to actually classify the reserve how it was before, which was a neighbourhood reserve, and then we need council to reclassify it as an local purpose access reserve, and then to grant an easement. So we will put an easement over that access for the people who live in the subdivision, so that means that they then have got legal rights across the reserve to access their homes. So all these things rest on council given approval today, but that is subsequent to the approval that, of course, that we gave way back in 2018 for them to actually use the reserve for access way. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Lennox.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Just a query, not so much for myself, but just so it's in the public forum, so people can hear. So the easement will not cause any effect to the access to the lovely native bush reserve for the public. There'll be no issues with myself toddling on down there to go for a walk.
No, not at all. The easement will effectively go across the formed access way. I don't want to call it a road because it's not going to be officially a road. And the access way to the reserve is actually off to the left. So you come off the main cul-de-sac and then go that way, so it won't. But also the easement is council granting the easement to the benefit of the people living in the subdivision. So we say to them, you can use this reserve to access your properties, but that doesn't take away the public's right to also use that access way. So they can drive down into the retirement village if they indeed want to. So it's not an exclusive use either. So we retain all of that public access, and we don't have to pay to maintain it. Is the most important point.
Thank you. Cheers.
Any further questions? No further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 206. Move Councillor Bowyer, seconded Councillor Johnson. Discussion? Yes, Councillor Bowyer.
I think this is really good. My discussion point is around, as we go in, the council have planted considerable natives in that on the left-hand side, in that reserve.
Is this a question, Councillor Bowyer?
No, they have. It's not a question. They have.
Councillor, just for a formality in that, so questions are with the officers. When the questions are finished, the officers move away and you're addressing the council. That's okay.
Yes, so the council has planted significant plantings in there, and I know the Friends of the Solwara Reserve are really keen to enable themselves to almost look after it. They've seen it as almost their own, so I'd just like to just put that on the table and just show that the residents around there really appreciate the plantings that were done by council and keen to see them continue to thrive.
Any other discussion? No other discussion, put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Page 223, amendment to standing orders, attendance by audiovisual link. Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship. This again is a procedural matter. It's really just following up on an amendment that we made when the legislation changed the quorum requirements of standing orders to enable, because of course we had COVID and then lots of disasters, where we needed to be able to have quorum, the amount of people that need to sit around the table in order for the meeting to go ahead. Previously, if you attended as members by audio-visual or audio link, you were not counted for quorum because you were not seen effectively as being in the room. But as COVID happened and we have now the technology for people to beam in, the quorum requirements under the legislation were changed and we amended our standing orders to give effect to that. The advice from LGNZ provides some clarification around what we mean by that, because the point of allowing the person who is beaming in via audio-visual link to be included for quorum is that you're effectively in the room. So the treatment of somebody who is on audio-visual link should be no different to somebody sitting around the table. The public should be able to see that you're there, that you're present, that you don't have anybody around you. If it's a part of the public excluded session of the meeting, that you're keeping things confidential. If you've got up and moved away and popped to the loo, then you're recorded as not being around the table anymore for quorum purposes, and then you come back in again. So all these things happen around the table here. So the purpose is that if you are beaming in, you're treated exactly the same, and that contributes to our transparency, that people who are looking in online can actually see your face, that you are there in attendance, rather than just a blank screen that you may or may not be there actually at the meeting. So it gives that confidence in our decision making for the public as well. So what we're proposing then is just to add in the guidance from LGNZ around that provision of being able to attend by audio or visual link to Standing Order 13.11, where we clarify that a member attending a meeting by audio visual link must have their camera turned on and positioned so that it shows their full face, unless having their camera turned off has been approved by the chairperson prior to the meeting. So we're seeking agreement to add that provision into the standing orders so that it's clear for everybody that you're there and you're participating. Happy to take
any questions for Karen? Please, Councillor Nelson.
When I was on a sabbatical a couple of years ago, I was in places with poor IT structure. Would that be a reason to be able to turn your camera off if that enabled better communication?
I can answer that. There's actually other provisions in the standing orders that you must, in order to be able to use audio-visual link, you must be able to have a good enough link that you can be beaming in from. And so, if there's problems, then we would, the chair would probably decline your ability to be counted for quorum then.
So, what I was able to do 2 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do now.
Well, the amendments to the quorum happened last year, so previously you were not counted as quorum, that didn't make up the numbers when you were around the table, but now the legislation has changed and we've changed our standing orders, you can be. So in terms of the voting numbers, then you will be included. So in order to be able to do that, you must be able to demonstrate that you're actually there and you're listening to everything all the time and it's not cutting out, and that you're actually just as like you would be in the room.
Again, okay, so in 2023, why was I counted as a quorum then? And I
think that was because I don't know that you were counted as a quorum then.
I definitely voted on issues.
You can vote.
Yep.
You can vote, you just won't be counted as quorum.
On a quorum, I see what you mean.
Yeah, that was the difference, yeah.
Yep. And, you know, when you talk about trust and things like that, in the same meeting, I can have this on during a public excluded, and we enable that sort of thing.
You're suggesting that we should not enable that sort of thing, Councillor Nelson?
But, but someone could, I wouldn't do it, but I could do it. Just the same as I'd like to be trusted to be in the room when my camera's turned off. If the IT infrastructure meant that that was the only way I could participate in the meeting.
Yeah. So it's trust and also being able to demonstrate to the public as well. So somebody who was looking at this online, for example, for streaming, wouldn't be aware if there was just there was nobody behind the screen, they wouldn't know that that person was there or not. So it's actually being able to, it's not just trust, it's demonstrating to the public that so that they can have confidence and they don't need to question whether somebody's there or not because they can see that they're there.
Yeah, I suppose I feel that if I was in that situation and I explained it to the chair that was the reason why my camera wasn't turned on, I feel that would be acceptable.
The chair would need to agree for you to not have your camera on. So there is the ability. So, for example, if you are sick and you're all, not looking your best, then you could ask the chair, and the chair might be sympathetic and say that's fine. You can have your camera off. So it does allow that to happen.
Yeah.
But ordinarily, by default, we expect to have the camera on.
Yep.
Any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Leon.
Yeah, many of you will imagine I've got some interest in this. You'll understand I've got some interest in this. A couple of questions, Karen. The current legislation still permits audio attendance and audio visual attendance. Is that correct or incorrect?
I believe that's the case and that we put it in standing orders, yeah.
And virtual audio attendance only allows an elected member to participate in voting and be part of a quorum. Yes and no?
Or just audio or audio?
Yeah, just audio.
I'm not quite sure if there's a difference between audio and audio visual. We do not encourage the practice of attending by audio either, and again that would need to be approved by the chair. Yeah.
That was the first time I was confronted with something like that after 2.5 years of sometimes being present visually, sometimes not, sometimes both. So I'm just trying to clarify what the legislation is at the moment, and are we taking a step over and above the current legislation around virtual attendance, which my understanding is can be either audio or audio-visual.
I would need to check the legislation, but looking at the section 1311 here, it's a meetings by electronic link may give approval, so that would suggest not audio if it was just electronic link.
The audio is not electronic.
Generally we have people phoning in. I suppose we could phone in via Teams and that would be electronic.
It's electronic.
Yeah. Anyway, so I hear the reasons that you are wanting to change this so that there's a visual presence for those that are attending virtually, and yes, I sort of get that. It's intuitive logic to that. However, there are times when it's some people attending electronically. It's not a question. I'll come back to that maybe. So I guess my next question is: have there been concerns expressed around just audio attendance as opposed to audio visual from the public?
We haven't, not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware in the 3 years that I've been here or been in a meeting where we've actually used audio link.
I'm talking about audio online, so where
Audio
someone
visual.
comes in, someone comes in an audio visual link but chooses not to have the camera on. Now there, like 2 weeks ago when I was requested to turn my camera on, and I didn't believe that was an actual need or legislative requirement, and I refused. And I suspect that this could be wrong. I suspect that this motion has been born out of that situation perhaps. And so I'm just trying to understand the legalities around the situation. And if it's not a legality to be visually present on the link, have there been concerns from the public that they are doubting people are there's a face or a body behind the audio link only.
So I think there's two separate parts to that question, two separate things in that question. So is there an explicit requirement in the legislation that if you are attending by audio-visual link, then that must be with a camera on? Well, no, but it doesn't also say that you have to be awake in a meeting, because I think it doesn't say that you have to be awake in meetings, because there's a lot that's unsaid and not clarified, not being made very clear within the legislation. And I think this is the reason why LGN said in their guidance have said that we should have the camera on, because the whole point of enabling people to come in via audio-visual link is so that you're effectively, and being counted for quorum, which is the most key part, is that you're effectively the same as if you would be sitting around the table.
I understand the advantage.
Yep. So that's the reason that it's in here. So
that's a recommendation by Local Government New Zealand?
So that's a recommendation by Local Government New Zealand around
across councils?
No, because like I say, not everything in the universe can be included within legislation and standing orders. But that's why there is, obviously this has happened somewhere else, other places where actually you are attending but your camera's not on. So let's be clear that you're there and that you are effectively standing around the table.
And so the purpose of this motion then is because of Local Government New Zealand recommendation, or the situation that happened several weeks ago?
So there has been a lack of clarity, and we recognise that there was a lack of clarity within our standing orders. You sought some advice from myself around what in standing orders would suggest that you require to have the camera on. And I provided that advice and I said we didn't have anything that specifically required it. However, there are a number of standing orders that if you don't have the camera on, you can't determine whether you're meeting the standing orders. As I spoke about before, we can't see that you're actually physically at your desk, that you're physically present for the purposes of quorum, for the purposes of recording the minutes.
So
we can't see.
Standing order that you have to be at your desk.
Though there's a standing order that says that we must record who is there for quorum purposes, we do that in the minutes. If you don't know that somebody's there, you can't effectively say that that person was there or they were not there for the purposes of that standing order.
But you can hear that person, they're putting up their little visual, virtual hand, interacting with discussion, they're asking questions. It's not sufficient to know that they're there, or the mayor or the chair can say, have you, Councillor Helena, do you have an opinion on that? Is that not sufficient?
No, I don't think it is. This is why Harriet records every time somebody gets up to go to the toilet.
You personally don't think it's sufficient?
That's my interpretation of the standing orders. Harriet must record if somebody is in the meeting for quorum purposes all the time. Every time you go to the toilet and come back again, it's only 2 minutes, but you'll know in the minutes that Harriet records that you are no longer at the table, you're no longer to be included as quorum. Unless you were sitting at the camera humming or constantly saying that you were there, it would be the same thing. We wouldn't know in between every
standing
time.
orders around people who are physically present, but their head's in another space?
Like I say, it doesn't actually require in the standing orders that you're awake, but I don't think if you're not awake, then you're probably not going to be counted for quorum.
So I guess my final question, so this is born out of improving the practice of virtual attendance, as opposed to the situation that happened 2 weeks ago where a couple of egos might have been a little bit wounded.
You requested my advice on the interpretation of standing orders. It was clear when I gave you that advice that it would actually be much clearer if we had something specifically in standing orders that required the camera to be on.
But it's not a legal requirement.
I would argue that it is a legal requirement, because I would argue that you would not be able to determine standing orders in relation to quorum, minutes, use of confidential information, all of those things, if we couldn't see that you're there.
Okay. No, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the importance of standing orders, and I just hope that all standing orders are applied consistently from here on in.
Me too.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, we have the recommendations on page 223. Somebody prepared to move? Move Councillor Johnson. Seconded Councillor Lennox. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Nelson?
Yep, I'm not going to support this. I believe if someone is away remotely and they can add to the discussion and they can share their contributions, I think that's more valuable than the standing order that's not a legal requirement. That's my view, just like you have your view.
Before anybody else comments, I'd like to make a comment that, and Karen hasn't mentioned, that after the last meeting, I particularly wanted to talk about this. I felt that the chair had to be given the option, simply because there have been times when I've been mayor where people have been online, and Tom, I'm not getting at you particularly here, but people have been online, and I've said to them, have you got something to say? And there's no answer. And to me, I don't know then whether they're there or not, and neither do any of us. So I think it's really, really, really important. This has now become a major talking point in councils. I've had a number of discussions with mayors in recent times, because Horowhenua, for instance, you might have seen on television, they have a councillor who's in Ireland and is coming in audio-visually. And the council feels because they're so far away, they're not as connected to council business as they should be. And I know that Horowhenua are thinking of bringing, I'm not sure whether they are, but there could be a remit coming to local government in New Zealand that councillors actually have to live within the bounds of their council, and that once they leave the bounds of the council, that they're therefore no longer a councillor. That's not something that I've even thought about whether I'd support or not. But I mean, those are the sorts of discussions that are now coming into this whole thing. And so I think this is a no-brainer. It's up to the chairperson. If somebody's got a good reason, if they're feeling really unwell or there's something going on, then obviously I would say, no, you don't have to do it. But I have had instances, more than one, where we've asked people who aren't on camera whether some question or whether they want something to say, and there's been no answer. And that to me is the whole guts of it, really. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that personally I find it much easier to have a conversation with someone if there's the face-to-face, and I do feel the same way with audio-visual. And the meeting you were referring to a few weeks ago, Tom, it was when you were having a conversation with a staff member, and neither of you knew when the other person was starting or stopping or pausing, and there was just a lot of talking over people. And I think it's much easier to have a conversation with someone when you can see their body language, see their reactions, and it just feels more like a conversation rather than an off-screen. It just feels more like a conversation, and the person is part of it. So I welcome being able to see the people that we're talking to in a room or whether they're on screen.
Yes, Councillor Black.
Oh, yes. I just want to add as well that 93% of our communication is through body language. So facial expressions, use of hands, you can actually pick up on how people are feeling through what you see versus just through their voice. Their black screen.
Any further discussion, Councillor Nelson?
At a time in which the Waiata Upper is probably trying to promote itself as a destination for remote working, remote access and things like that, I think this decision is a backward step, and I would question that 93% body language statistic to shared councillor.
Cool as. Just add to your comment there, Tim. Check on ChatGPT.
Do it right now.
The other side of it, Councillor Nelson, you will remember that you spent some time away on a holiday.
Sabbatical.
Yeah, on a sabbatical, and there were a number of times where we couldn't hear you. We couldn't hear the audio stuff. We didn't understand what you were saying, and obviously, if your face had been there, at least we'd have known you were talking. But we couldn't. There were times when you just disappeared. The sound just disappeared.
At that time, thank you, Kim, the upgrading of the IT infrastructure here has improved significantly, and I don't think it'll be the same issue. In fact, I know it wouldn't be the same issue now from this end.
I'm not so sure about that. I've been to a lot of places where there's really better audiovisual than we could hear, and it still happens. Councillor Lennox.
Sorry, in response to you, Tim, I will correct myself. 93% is non-verbal, but 70% is through body language. I've just checked on my ChatGPT.
Any further discussion? Councillor Lena.
Based on that, we can be online and not say anything and get the message across.
Exactly.
I Councillor Johnson's, yes, I remember that discussion with the staff member. I couldn't see the staff member as well. And that made it more difficult because the camera, and you've all been online, zooms in on this space. It doesn't zoom in on the wider space. Look, I think there's some sensible reasons to do this, but I also think we need to embrace the new age, and people are busy, and that we live complex lives, and our lives take us all over the place. And being able to participate in council from afar is a real advantage when our lives are taking us elsewhere. I think there's intuitive logic in what's being argued here. I just hope that it's not a whole lot of waste of time. We're doing it because there's good reason to do it, not because actually we're going to make sure you're visibly present in future online sessions, Councillor Olina.
I would answer that, Tom, by saying no, that's definitely, from my point of view, that's definitely not.
I'm not saying it's the case, Gary.
And it's not only yourself. I understand you've got logistical problems that we haven't, most of us haven't got. But from my point of view, it's everyone. This is absolutely everyone I'm talking about here, everyone around the table. Because, as I said, we have had circumstances where people have not been, have either been away or they haven't heard or whatever, and it's confusing. The thing that I would say very clearly, though, is that if you've got good reason that you can't, and you can only come in on the other side as chair, I'm going to take that into account. So, yeah, any further, did you want to say something? Yeah, Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about means of communication, but at the end of the day, the communication, however it arrives at the table, is the most important thing. I don't see this as a hugely important debate, but there's some people, I could be, a metre and a half away from them and ask them questions and never get anything intelligent out of them. Other people could zoom in and, add a whole lot to the argument. So it just varies from person to person. But I hear what you're saying about you trying to treat everyone the same.
And Councillor Goodwin, might I say that I'm only a metre and a half from you.
Oh,
and often I struggle to understand what you're saying. Any further questions? Okay, I'll put the recommendations. The recommendation on page 223. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against. Thank you. We now move to... sorry, we've got... Going against?
Yeah.
Councillor Nelson against.
And Helena.
Page 230.
And Tom.
Oh, Tom, do you vote against what?
I just think there's some good reasons sometimes not to be visibly present, and they need to be considered.
Yes, I tell you, I think this will come up at local government conference this year. Page 230, the Waipua Project Team Preferred Option Report. Thanks.
Chief Kylie presented.
Oh, Kylie. Welcome, Kylie.
Hello. So I'm here to introduce the paper that, we're here to introduce the paper for the Greater Wellington Regional Council issued report that has been presented today. For some context, earlier in this year, GW held public engagement on the 4 Waipua flood risk concepts. Based on that feedback, the project team has put together their preferred option, which has aspects from the different concepts in it. The MDC paper and the agenda incorporates a list of MDC's priorities and concerns that were outlined in our submission and the GW response. And lastly, the GW officers involved, Francie and Ella, have very kindly come in today to answer any questions about the GW report, if you have any. That's it from me.
Okay, questions. This could be interesting. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Yep. This is an interesting document because it identifies a number of issues and concerns and a number of plans for action, and to me it's a living document because there's not one solution that solves everything. But I thought it was interesting on the first page, and I'll ask you, where it says, this is presented to Masterton District Council for information, yet the same report is going to be presented to GW for adoption and endorsement, which I was surprised at, because I would have thought it would go to GW for information as well, because there's so much in there that is reliant on conversations. So that's my question. To me, it's not a plan to be adopted. It's a starting point. So I just wanted to raise that. I know it's not a question, but I think it'd be interesting for you guys to look at the wording of that. And then I just want to say that as part of it talks a lot about MDC working with GW on next steps, and I'm pleased to see that it talks about the two.
Question,
coming. The two of us agreeing on a level of service and critical assets, but wouldn't that be dependent on a business case from MDC on the future of Morley Park?
Sorry, so the question is do we need a business case on the future of Morley Park?
Yes, because to my mind that GW and MDC can't work together on what might happen in the future if we don't do our own homework on our assets first.
Could I suggest, Maz, that maybe you'd like to come up and join?
Do you see what I'm getting at? To me, this is like
All this.
Yeah.
Bridges.
I think you're going to get a few questions.
So do you see what I mean? Because it's all very well to say that what they're looking at doing will affect, I'll just use Morley Park as an instance because it's easier, will affect the Morley Park assets. But to me that's a step too far, because shouldn't we first identify, do a business analysis on Morley Park? It's not just about the business, the assets there, it's about the future of Morley Park moving forward based on we've now got two other motorhome pieces here, travel has changed, Morley Park's 60 years old. You know what I mean? It's a separate piece of work which is not just to do with stop banks.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And you're right, it is something that we should pull into some of the strategic work that we do have coming up in terms of also around like the sports facilities and different buildings that we've got. So the answer is yes, we should do that, and we will do that. But how that impacts the GW's work and the time frame, we'll need to work that through.
But sorry, just to finish, because to me, what GW want to do there is kind of a part of it, but I believe that we should be doing a strategic plan for that anyway. I agree.
Yes, we do have it on the longer term program.
Yep. But it's not. It can't be long term because this will impact on it.
Councillor Goodwin.
I just I wouldn't want to see too much of a business case on Morley Park, because my understanding is that this is an argument about protecting a third of urban Masterton, which was 3,600 odd buildings and dwellings. And Morley Park, I'm not saying it's valueless, but my question to you is, if you put the stop bank over behind it, or even in front of the, further back from where it is, or right over at the back of it, which would help protect the rest of Masterton. If you did that, doesn't that just mean that apart from a few old dwellings down by the river, that once every 100 years or something, you might have to say, well, the camping ground, there's a flood risk, we're not going to have anyone camping there on this side of the stop bank, then you have to evacuate it. The water comes in, the water goes out, and the 3,600 properties in urban Masterton can all breathe a sigh of relief, and that's. I just don't see the relevance.
Well, just from an engineering perspective, we are not best placed to answer some of those kind of questions because that work is with Regional Council.
Exactly, and it's quite technical, but they have come back and suggested this. I, for one, I know some other councillors have done it, walked down there and, gee, I can't see much of a problem with a bit of a flood once every 100 years.
Might not be once in every 100 years.
Well, missing
might be 2 every year for the next 2 years.
Who knows?
Well, 1%.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, no, I think Councillor Goodwin's missing the point. My point in the business case is that one of the lines in here says GW will fund moving or protecting MDC's critical assets to an agreed level of service. Well, if we said, let's move 10 of the units at Morley Park over and all that money's spent, and there isn't a future for cabins and holiday parks when we've got 2 motorhome parks now and the world's changing. So my point for the business case is that we wouldn't spend unnecessary money doing something without a future plan.
I think it's a detailed question for Regional Council, but from an operational perspective, they're probably referring to, and our critical infrastructure would be the underground assets.
Okay, any further questions?
That needs clarification.
It's just questions at the moment.
Yeah, no, I've got
Discussion
questions,
coming.
I've got discussion coming, but I'd just like to ask, through you to Francie, how much longer is the advisory group going to be involved in this? Because I sat down to, it's a stage now where it's between Greater Wellington and Masterton District Council. And the other thing is that I believe by you taking your report to the Wairapa group, and we haven't actually signed it off, we're only receiving it today. I think we've got things around the wrong way.
Welcome, Francie. Francie's from the Wellington Regional Council.
Yeah, Francie Morrow, Greater Wellington Regional Council. Thank you for having me today. In response to your first question, Councillor Holmes, the Waipawa project team is currently still active. We're currently still working with them through this process to get to this preferred option being gone up through to our Environment Committee. What that looks like in terms of adoption or endorsement, we're still working through that process. It's likely to be for endorsement so that we can continue working through to detailed design. But with regard to the project team, there is an intention to work with them until we're at that stage, and then we'll work with them on what that next stage looks like. However, what we have said is that we are committed to working with Masterton District Council as asset owners, as the local council obviously as one of our partners moving forward, and that's where our primary relationship will be, as well as Mana Whenua.
Well, anybody got questions for any of these people? Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 230?
I'd possibly like to make an amendment in that recommendation and take out the word progressive, because I don't think they're terribly progressive at the moment. That indicates, to me, the word progressive indicates that we are all in harmony. And I don't think we really are. I know that's been very semantic.
So you'd like the word progressive, you're prepared to move an amendment along those lines?
So do you want discussions continue?
Yeah, discussions continue. I think we're not quite at the progressive stage yet.
Okay. Yeah, so that's moved by Councillor Bay. We've got a seconder? Seconder, good one. Councillor, good one. We therefore now move into discussion. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I know I'm harping on about this, but so be it. So my key thing here is, thank you for clarifying critical assets, but we have assets that probably aren't critical, but they would be determined as being critical or not critical if there was a business case that supported them. So my question here, going back to Morley Park, is, every day we try and save our ratepayers' money and not incur additional costs on them for the sake of it. And some of the traps that council get into is that because they've been doing something forever, they continue to do it. So my question is, with regards to Morley Park, is Morley Park relevant for the future of Masterton? I'm not disclaiming anything that it's been in the past or the reasons that it was created, but you know, if the right decision for a stop back is to go through Morley Park or on the other side of Oxford Street side of Morley Park, well then we have to review what is Morley Park's future. At the moment it costs our ratepayers $230k per annum, so that's rates required to fund it. It's $26k per annum in insurance. You know, what are the trends for camping? We've got 2 motorhome parks now that we didn't have before. What is the appetite for cabins? What is the appetite for caravans? Etc., etc. So all I'm saying is that, is it a critical asset? It may not be a critical asset, and you've clarified that it's probably infrastructure that is a critical asset. But I would really like to see this prompting a business analysis of Morley Park and what it could be in the future or not. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Bowe.
Just to carry on with that. Yes, I would like to see that. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, it's discussion now.
Discussion. Yeah, I think at the least we should see the data for the last 5 years, the trend data as to stays, who's staying, who's not, since those other campaigns has come in.
Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes, then Councillor Lena.
Well, thank you for the report, actually, but I have to admit, I don't like the preferred option at all. I think one of the reasons I don't like the nature-based solutions is because you haven't got enough information from other people or other organisations whether it works or not. It's a lot of airy-fairy holistic stuff. I say that in a kind way too, by the way. But the other thing is that out of all these reports, there's certain aspects of every report that is very good. And it's only a matter, and it's the hardest part is getting them all together to make it work. The other query is, in the report, there's only been 4 major floods in over 100 years for Masterton. And with regards to the modern alarm systems we've got now, Morley Park, I would be, personally, I think it should be sacrificed because that's an area where water can go and it gives it room to spread out. But I think if you're going to use the nature-based solution, there should be some nature-based work done north of the railway line, catching that water as it comes in. And that's going to take a lot of work, but $30 million paid by Masterton ratepayers is a hell of a lot of money. For something that might happen tomorrow, it may not happen for 20 years, who knows? And that's one of the problems. But I think District Council needs to work with Greater Wellington on a few more solutions. Well, the other thing is that the pump we've put down in Columba Road, which is pumping all the sewage from Lansdowne and everything, that'll have to be reassessed because it ain't going to work underwater, that's for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Goodwin. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lena, then Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, you know, my view is, in speaking to people on the project team, you know, I think there's even differences amongst them. There's not full consensus around what the best option or range of options are. But I think we do have to trust the team and the experts at Greater Wellington to come up with the best solution. I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Johnson's point around Morley Park. Yes, if Morley Park is part of the solution and the stock bank, you know, cuts that park in half, we do need to consider the future of Morley Park. But my key point is here, I know at Morley Park there's, you know, probably a dozen vulnerable individuals that are home there, and we cannot lose sight of the fact that we have a responsibility to them if Morley Park is no longer in action.
Thank you, Councillor Lena. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodwin.
Just 2 points, and one of them may come back later, that certainly from my look at Morley Park, the placement of a stock tank, whether in the middle of it, over the back of it, or wherever, doesn't change its use as a parking ground, as a camping ground. You know, you can camp on one side of it or the other, and probably on top if you wanted to. But Councillor Holmes raised the issue, and it's very true, about north of the railway bridge. But I just thought I'd ask Francie while she's here, because my understanding is that that's, this project is looking at protecting the largest capital value, which is urban Masterton, and the northern part of it is very important, but that comes next. We're just trying to protect 3,600 dwellings roughly in urban Masterton, which is rather a crucial and urgent project. So I just wonder if Francie could talk about what's happening north of the railway bridge.
Francie, would you like to answer that?
Do you have it for me to?
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you to answer that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. So as you say, this particular project is currently focused on protecting the Masterton urban area. The costs that are in there, $30 million, are for structural works through the urban reach. There's that nature-based solutions that Councillor Holmes was speaking to earlier, which is still being investigated. It's still in its feasibility stage. We're still trying to determine if or how it would be feasible, and any of those nature-based solutions would be implemented upstream of the railway bridge, potentially looking at the foothills of the Taroa Ranges, kind of in that area, or kind of anywhere up in that upper catchment location for those nature-based solutions. But that piece of work is still, as we say, being investigated. And in the meantime, we do want to make sure that we are providing that flood protection for the Masterton urban reach with these measures through town. But that we still see some benefits in investigating what those nature-based solutions in the upper catchment may be, and what sort of reduction in the flood flows they could provide, and using that as additional resiliency, so still providing that flood protection with the measures that we've put in the preferred option report. Does that answer your question?
One of the suggestions I've got is that under the resilience group, we're talking about encouraging farming people to put in their own dams. And I'm sure in this situation, there's a lot of properties up there that they could all put on dams to stop this water coming down in a big way. But the trouble is, I don't know whether anything's ever going to handle a major storm like Gabriel. If we'd got Gabriel through here, we would have been in big trouble. So that's just one of the parts of the risk.
May I respond?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, which is what we are also agreeing to. So hence why we're still wanting to provide that agreed 1% plus climate change level of service through the urban reach with the structural measures, and therefore anything, even the small dams that you may be talking about, some revegetation or afforestation in the upper catchment, which may provide additional resiliency. We're still looking to provide that base level of service, that 1% or 100-year plus climate change level of service using our structural measures. So there is still work to be done to see what sort of efficacy the nature-based solutions in the upper catchment would have, which is why I want to reassure you that the current plan for structural works is still providing that level of service as agreed, not including those nature-based solutions. Those are additional resiliency investigations.
Nature-based is intergenerational too. It's long-term. It's not going to happen in the next 10 years.
Absolutely, which is why we are wanting to put these structural measures in place in the more short to medium term, rather as potentially as well as those nature-based solutions for the long-term benefits and wider benefits that the nature-based solutions also provide environmentally and socially.
Thank you, Francie. We appreciate your contribution to this discussion. Just one thing I'd like to say, and following on from Councillor Johnson and Councillor Bowyer, is that I do believe that this is a real opportunity to prompt further discussion on Morley Park. I think the viability of Morley Park is now certainly under question, but that's a wider question that doesn't come in here. But I welcome the fact that we would look at Morley Park, because it's, whether there's a need for it is certainly questionable. Anyway, now we've got a mover and a seconder. Everybody put the recommendations on page 230. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. The infrastructure and asset activity report. Man.
Chair, can I ask a question? Can we did this at the beginning of Mayor's report when it was redesigned and we would ask questions per slide. Can we go back to that? Because what happened in the last few meetings is we've gone on
I'm sure Mayor's won't mind you doing that.
Is that okay, Mayor's?
Councillor Lennox.
Just keeps it streamlined.
Kia ora. Worship and councillors, thank you. It's that time of the period again. I'm going to speak just to the general update that I've provided, so page 1, and then each of the activity managers will speak to their own papers. So April has been a little bit of a shorter month for us with all the stat holidays. And we did have a number of staff that took leave in between to have an extended break, which was really good. We're happy to see that. Given the size of work packages and the relatively small team that we have in infrastructure and assets, it's good that they take that time when they can. Despite that, the focus it's been a busy month as always. The focus has been business as usual, but spending a bit of time on trying to make sure we get the forecasts right for the end of the financial year, and then starting to look at projects for the new financial year. Some of the big ticket items that have taken a reasonable amount of time, particularly in my space, has been the Wairarapa solid waste contract, of course local water done well, Hood aeronautical charges and the consultation, and then the consent hearings for the town hall. The highlight for the month, as you would have read, really goes to the roading team who did an outstanding job and was successful in winning the IPWEA Aotearoa NZ Excellence Awards for projects 2 million and under. So we're absolutely delighted with Kane and the team. You know, they partnered with Fulton Hogan, and it was a really good example of innovative thinking and what good relationships can do to bring a really good solution to our community. So super proud of the team in that space. And that's me for April. I'm happy to take any questions, general questions.
On the Mayor's report, any questions? Councillor Goodwin.
Just a question, probably for Kane, on the when will we get the figures for the cost of meeting the NZTA roading targets, 2%, 9%, the rehabilitation, resurfacing?
Well, Kane's paper is actually up next, so we could go. Do you want to come into roading now, Kane, and then you can. Yeah.
Any further question for Mayor's though before Kane comes up? Okay, none for Mayor's. Thank you, Kane. Kane's on roading.
I'll answer Councillor Goodwin's questions after I deliver my report. That's okay. So just a brief overview of my 2 slides here for you. So just to we go over that we've completed our resurfacing program. It's all done with no issues. We've started our footpath program. We've done Reynolds Street, Fleet and Millard. Has been completed and we're moving on to others. We've finished most of our pavement rehab work. That's on Butte Road, Masterton and Cusp Point Road and Dixon Street, with one more site to go in the intersection of Te Uru, Bitterford and Cusp Point Road. The ceiling crews also completed the work in the Queensland Park car park resurfacing. Just to highlight, we've got some additional funding approved through NZTA for our stormwater resilience improvement projects that were approved in the annual plan next year. So there's additional funding there to do more work too on those cyclone affected sites and areas where we can get some real benefit by putting more resilience into the stormwater networks there for future events. So that's a really good outcome. We continue to work through our emergency sites. So sites that are still live are Matakona, Castle Point Road, Whangahu Valley Road and Alfreton Tanui Road. Some operational highlights are we've done quite a lot of work on Big Saddle, which is on Masterton Cusp Point Road out to Cusp Point, fixing the road there. and quite a few bridge approaches have had sort of quite a bit of work done on Homewood Road and Jackson's Line. We're also targeting around 2,000 sumps for cleaning around the urban area right now, so there's a crew going around delivering that work right now. We've welcomed a new manager at Higgins, Ken Mason, so he's undertaken a new role there. And we've finished the review of a procurement strategy which will come to Council at the next meeting for endorsement. The dashboard that you see on the second page is there's no surprises in there. It's fairly comparable to the 3-month average, and that's me for the highlights.
Question?
So to answer Brent's one first, we have completed a report on that numbers. I've just received it literally this week, so I've just got to go through it and check it out and analyse it. But it's modelled a 1% 6% scenario, a 2% 9% scenario, and our current budget scenario with costs. So I'll be able to share that information once we've gone.
Okay. And just a supplementary one, I see you've got additional NZTA funding of 1.8 million. Is there ongoing, we got updated a while ago about what they had funded and what they hadn't funded. Is it, I just can't remember, is it ongoing that sometimes they revisit things or find some more money and do cough up a bit more?
It's a bit unusual. It appears to be the way that they've been dealing with it this round, but that's not generally the case. They usually set their 3-year targets, but in this case the government has signalled resilience as an important thing, and they've released more funding, which is we've taken from the improvement category. And there was quite a short time frame to submit for it too, which isn't usual either.
Excellent.
Councillor Bayer.
Okay, thank you. Well, hey, just around Matakona, we've seen in the last 2-3 weeks how well on the Ngawi Palliser Road the eco reef, the hexagonal blocks, have really worked, and there was some real dramatic footage shown. Are we looking at using those at Matakona or?
Part of the $3 million fund we've got is to look at a consent for emergency works for the coastal marine environment for the sections of Matakona Road that are most vulnerable, and part of that consent will look at options like riprap and eco reef as a go-to solution if we have future problems there. So yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, Councillor Holmes.
I thought Craig was going to ask it about Matakona. I just wondered, that last storm, was there much damage done?
About 14 trees down and just one slip out Matakona, so relatively...
On the coast? Nothing?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Any further questions of Kane? Thank you so much, Kane. We then go on to the utility side of it, who is... Here we go, Shane.
Steve Tanakoto.
Steve, sorry.
Your Worship, Councillors, ELT. I'll take this part of the utilities report as read, but I'll just go through some of the highlights. So we've got a number of projects for water there, generally. The district metered area projects, or DMAs, zones, water zones, that report has been completed. There was some interesting reading in there, but the main thing is we have determined zones, but we have got, I was looking at my choice of words there, so it's also more high flow than leakage. We can't determine that at the moment, but we've just got some stuff to check out from the report, and also some of the valves that might determine those flows as well, which we've made a program and I've received that report. I'm just getting estimates to replace those, and that will also help with leak detection and quicker shutdowns too. The Nikau Reservoir tank, we've just had an update from Phil that we will be going to the 19th hole, I think maybe tomorrow, to sign the 19th up at the golf course, sorry, to sign the or get them to sign the purchase of the land for the Nikau Reservoir purchase, so that can continue, or installation, in the next financial year. There's the laterals on High Street. That's gone. That's the first stage is already completed, and that was from Judd to Fleet Street. So we've taken the laterals out of that area. Laterals are generally smaller and subject to lots of breaks and repairs. And obviously, with 300 mil of asphalt going through those roads, very costly to reinstate for the council. So we're going to continue that in the new financial year in conjunction with NZTA. So we will do another rider main on, continue that down to from Fleet Street to roughly Vivian Street next financial year, and then the following year it'll be from Vivian Street to Kurapuni corner there. And NZTA will come along and reinstate the road each year. So that's going all good. Water meter installations. Yes, I think there was a bit of that talked about, obviously early in the council meeting, but we are continuing to work on installing where required the water meters, and obviously the bylaws and stuff have got a lot to play with that, and also the billing. As I said, I think that was discussed in depth a little bit earlier on. Opaki water main going okay. Intermediate Street, Lowe's Place has already kicked off. It's probably about 60% completed. Derby Street, we're scoping that out. I will see if that one will be able to fit in, but considering the end of the financial year, but it will be completed. It will be either completed this financial year or very early in the next financial year. Water Race, we've repaired the valve there. That actually has made a difference to the control, but not as good as going for a automatic version. The automatic version, we are getting the report this week. I've chased up our consultant engineer. I expect to receive that any day soon this week. Dam survey, I've got the results are coming back this week, and the certification for our areas that were classed as dam as per the report there. Kaituna, one pond at each gap at Kaituna, Riverstone and Castle Point. Wastewater projects, we're about to kick off the west side, as we've called it, relining with those streets there, Olive Perry and Grey Streets. That's quite a lot of relining, and that'll make quite a difference to that area. I've given some definitions, or given some report on our service requests from our contractor. This, bear in mind, will be an ongoing report. I want to see improvements to that. I've just been in consultation with our contractors to see to make some improvements on their reporting. So we will get some more information for you the next time this report comes out. And then we've got the waste minimisation plan. There's quite a bit of information, about 20 odd projects going on there, pretty well mapped up with where they're at, and the current actions in place. So any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Just a question on page 315, which is about the waste minimisation project update. I see there's a comment there about a proposal to recruit an in-house educator. My question is that a new position, a vacancy, because we're always aware of staff numbers, and also who's paying for that?
So I've got Joe here, as you know, who's a real subject matter on solid waste.
Kia ora. So to answer your question, that was an education proposal put forward to the management team. It hasn't gone any further than that. However, to fund that, that'll be through waste levies, and the indication through the new proposed Waste Minimisation Act that we may get a substantial more money as well. So that's just something to think about. It's still in process. It's not a done deal or anything like that. It was just a proposal to put forward, considering there is a lot of projects for one waste advisor per council to get across.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Lennox.
My question's on the water, and it strikes, you're talking about laterals on High Street, and we're always doing renewals, Derby Street, Intermediate, wherever. That it strikes me that is the perfect time to be approaching the residents in that street and saying, we're doing all this work and we need you, your water meter tells us that you've got a leak. And we always shy away from this, and councils are always scared of doing that, whereas it just strikes me as the logical time to get a bit more buy-in from the public.
That's a good point, Councillor. I think with the water meter project, we are going to be doing a campaign about how to check for water leaks, and it is a good portion of leakage is due to private. But quite honestly, our focus is on getting our assets in line, so that we can go and determine that it is on private property.
I understand that, but with all those jobs, the work they entail, how much work is it to simply say, oh right, we're doing High Street or whatever street, Derby Street, give us the list of the water meters that are showing silly consumption. Let's hit them now. We get so much kickback when we do it just out of the blue, whereas when those trucks are there and we're spending money, I might be wrong, but I feel like that's the perfect chance to pressure the buggers into fixing theirs.
I'm happy to respond to that, Councillor. We have structured programs of work. The capital work is capital work, and that is, we are dedicated and focused on that. And we have cycles of when we read the water meters, we collect that data, and then we advise the users.
I understand the principle of having silos everywhere. I'm just trying to make a connection that I think would...
It's not an efficient way to operate.
Help the, the outcomes and make it easier for council to achieve its objectives.
It's a nice suggestion, but it's not an efficient way to operate.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor.
This is just, thank you, Steve, for your report. This is around waste management, Joe. So I just, in regards to your projects, and there's two here, headers, divert construction and demo waste, and litter and illegal dumping. My question to you is, have we yet investigated a tip shop? I just want to back up my question with a statement. The tip shop in Wellington employs 14 staff, whether it be a mix of full-time, part-time, casual. It is not rates funded, and it supports itself through revenue going back into its operating costs. So not a burden to the ratepayer. I think I mentioned this probably when I first got on council about having a refuse tip shop at our tip, could become the Waireka one. That to me would be a possible answer for two of your project headers here. So my question is, could we look, or bring a paper to council investigating that option?
That could be an option. It was also in the 2018 10-year plan, off the top of my memory, that was accepted by MDC to have resource recovery of some kind at the transfer station, Masterton transfer station. So unless that's revisited, we could do that eventually when it comes up.
As part of the LTP, it won't be just a random one now. But I can say we have secured a property near the tip. And it's now in the ownership of the council, which was the last piece in the jigsaw puzzle to be able to secure that large part of land.
So the idea is not dead in the water as such, it just needs to be
It's not dead, but we just need to schedule it part of our LTP than just sporadic request, so if that's okay.
Yeah, well, if I'm elected, I'll be pushing for that again.
Fantastic.
Any questions for yes, David?
Councillor Boyer and I went out to Wainururu to the water meeting out there. Now, under the new rules and regulations by Tuamata Arawai, all the users of the water out there house users have to install a filter. And at this stage, it looks as though the filters are going to be worth $4,000. And I know some people that had 5 filters to put on 5 houses on there. I'm not saying that what I'm really highlighting to councillors is this has happened. It's nothing to do with council. It's a rule that's been put in, and council officers have got to abide by them. But I just make it clear that I'm actually going with some of the committee and the local MP down to see Simon Watts about this project. I know we're not going to win it, but it's worth a go. It just seems ridiculous. The whole Wainururu water scheme works well, good standard of water and everything, and because it's sort of run by council, we have to abide by these rules, but in the same token, we have the Paki water scheme up there, that's a private scheme, they don't have to do it. So there's an irregularity there, but I just wanted to highlight that to people.
I think there was almost a question in there. Do you want Shane to comment on that, or...?
No, he was there at the meeting. And
Steve, sorry.
Steve was very good.
Yeah.
He was very good too.
People at the Wainui Community Hall there, David. It is owned by the Master Regional Council, District Council, sorry. That is why we have to abide by the rules. You know that, Councillor, sorry. And Tamata Arawai. So I thought myself that was quite a good reception we had there in the end.
They're all lifestylers.
Saying, but we have to abide by government legislation because that is registered in MDC's name. Yeah.
The bulk of those people were lifestylers, actually.
Yes, so I found out.
That's fine.
Councillor Bogan.
What's the difference between a pond and a dam?
Pond. You tell me, Councillor. It's to do with the height, actually. It's to do, honestly. I did look at that when you've got three in a row and only one of them, but it's obviously it's the survey level and it's deemed, and then they have a risk in case the impact of that letting go, obviously, in a serious event like an earthquake or something, and what impact that would have on the community or the surrounding land. But yes, the height.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Steve? Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you so much. We now have got the project's assets and compliance. Well.
Good afternoon again, councillors. I might just carry on from that last point Steve made about the Wainuiaru scheme, because there's been a few developments in that since we had the meeting in April. Arawai are still consulting on these acceptable solutions, so up to now they've been saying we need this point of use. They have just recently published a bit of a policy and a flowchart. There's a webinar that started at 12 o'clock today I was hoping to jump into, but I missed that. They are suggesting that there's an option there whereabouts we tell the users they have to install the system, we tell them again they have to install the system. If they fail to do so through a process, we can then issue them directly a boil water notice to them directly. Not a general one to the entire scheme, but one to them. And that may be an acceptable outcome for Taumata Arawai. So they're still working on that policy stuff. That's only been in the last couple of days, and I was hoping to jump into that webinar. So there's going to be a bit of movement in that space potentially. But we will still have to go through a process. We still need to collect the information. We still need to know who's got the system, who's drinking, who's not. And then we'll have to potentially directly inform those individual users. Currently there is a standalone boil water notice for the entire network. It has been, well, as far as I'm aware, it's been there forever. So there may be a pathway forward, but we'll know a bit more hopefully before the next meeting.
Thank you. Good news.
Once we do know, we'll communicate that to the committee as well. But in the interim, we are collecting that information from the users. As Steve said, we had a really good meeting, I feel, out at Wainuiaru, and thanks to the members who came and supported us there. Some good discussions. The other point probably to highlight that's been going on recently, of course, is the Town Hall hearing for the resource consent that was held a couple of weeks ago, and we're expecting the decision on that to come through on the 21st, so hopefully next week. And once we have that decision from the Commissioner, we'll know where we stand and what the next steps are. Once the decision is issued by the Commissioner, there's 15 working days for people to appeal that decision. And there's some legalities under what circumstances you can and can't appeal, but if you're a submitter or the applicant, then you have the ability to appeal that decision if you don't like it. So until that happens, we won't really know much more about that one. I'm happy to take the rest of these points as read and try my best to answer any questions, Councillor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I've just got two questions on this page. Just around the Waiata House extension, who's the governance group, and I'm guessing that hasn't been formed yet?
No, they've got...
Yes, the governance group is myself, Corin, the project lead, which is Laura, and an external.
So no elected members on that? No. Not necessary. Thank you. Second question is around the library. I know Councillor Johnson last time requested a sign or some form of communication be put outside the library just to get the community excited with what's to come. Has that happened yet?
I don't believe so, but I can talk to the project manager about that, or we can do that.
Oh, okay. Well, it would be good if we could have a sign or some form of something. Watch the space. Yeah.
Watch the space. Good suggestion. Thank you, Councillor. Take that on board.
But anyway, I would like to request some form of communication to the public saying watch the space, because we did decide on that a long time ago and not much things are happening, but for the general public it doesn't look like much is happening. Thank you. I'll come back to another two questions on page 2.
Councillor Gorman.
On the Waiata House, I have requested the geotech report on the test bore they did out there. I don't know, I've just got a suspicion that it's a bad place to try and build an IL4 building myself. But have you got that report yet, or can I have it?
Was that an information request you put through, Councillor? So
well,
I
think I did put it. I'm just.
Yeah, my apologies. I don't know why that slipped through. I'll follow that up.
Okay, jolly good. Yeah, because there's been, I've got a funny feeling the necessity to do that project may come up for challenge fairly soon. And, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. But I'll just make sure we get that report through to you, Councillor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Lennox.
Page 2, I think.
Yeah, Town Hall. I just have a couple of queries that have been on my mind. If we are granted, just in regards to the comments, so if we are granted permission to proceed as per Council's decision in the long-term plan, can you please confirm if there will be any further discussions and decisions required by us, elected members, before demolition commences? Secondly, what is the time frame between the Commissioner's decision and demo taking place, if that decision is to go ahead? And thirdly, will we see proposed designs of whatever before demolition takes place?
Thank you, Councillor. So maybe to answer those in reverse order, so we will hold off on making any decisions until we see that actual conditions of that consent. There'll be conditions on it, and so we have to work our way through those conditions and see what we need to do as part of that. Any designs will absolutely come back to the elected members.
Cool.
We haven't discussed coming back to you again around the decision to demolish. We are just working on getting the procurement documentation, getting the building inventoried and emptied, preparing ourselves to do that work. I'll take direction from the executive leadership team as to what we bring back. If you wish to have a report maybe in the wake of the decision being released, we can certainly bring that back to the council.
Thank you. These are just questions I'm getting asked by the community, so I appreciate your feedback on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Councillor Orwell.
My question is probably for Karen. There was a notice of motion, from memory, in June of last year to try and overturn the decision about the town hall. Is it correct that come 1st of July, another notice of motion will be able to be put? Is there a 12-month freezing period after a notice of motion before you can have another go?
I think you might know the answer to that, Councillor, and I think it's...
No, I forget.
I think it's, yes, that there is it's a year, you're not allowed to bring the same motion back to council, yes.
Oh.
So, yes.
First of July.
If that was the date that was previously the notice of motion was put, then yes, it will be good.
Thank you. It's fair to say, Phil, is it, that we're expecting the Commissioner's decision within the next week?
The 21st of May is the anticipated date, so it could be earlier, but that's the target date.
Well, for the 1st of July. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. What's specifically going to come back to us in that report?
Well, we haven't drafted a report yet, so...
No, what will come back from the Commissioner? What will that report
look like? A decision to say whether they grant the consent, subject to conditions, or they decline the consent for these reasons, and that will be a basic report from the Commissioner saying this is what you need to do if you want to give effect to this consent. So it might be that we have to, he grants permission to demolish it, but we have to put in place a traffic management plan, a dust and noise management plan, we have to recycle. I don't quite know what will be in that until it comes through, we won't know. We have, as part of that application, included a set of draft conditions, but that's very normal for us to do that. The Commission doesn't have to take those on board, they're just there to assist.
Yeah, so that's the 21st?
But by the 21st is the target date, yes. That's that they're obligated to do it by.
Any further questions for Phil? Okay, thank you, Phil. We're on now to facilities and open spaces. Oz, welcome back.
Kia ora koutou. I'll take the report as read and just follow on through from the other managers.
A couple of highlights, I guess. I think, I work alongside Kane's team. We've managed to progress some resurfacing work. So I think the skate park, rear car park is a good example of the most recent piece. We also had contractors carry on with our senior housing areas. So the Truro Flats has had a renovation of its driveway and car park, and that was really positively received by the residents. Really good feedback on the contractors as well about how they engaged with everyone during the works program. Also like to highlight a new soak pit that had to go in at Memorial Park. Some groundwater infiltration under heavy rain sort of would go through the grandstand and into the changing rooms. So we've done some investigation work into there, and a decent soak pit's gone in to try and resolve that for the future. In the parks and open spaces area, the Te Uru Rakau grant, which we received from central government, we're going to add another 4,200 plants to the Southern Reserve, which is helping stabilise that escarpment area in the Southern Reserve at Riversdale Beach. This year's planting program will be approximately about 16,000 natives that have gone in. The plants are eco-sourced, grown from seed at the Akura Road Nursery. Also, just highlight the Henley Lake Playground. So unfortunately, it hasn't finished quite on as planned. There have been some delays in the final pieces of sort of exercise equipment that are going to be installed, but the site's all prepared, ready, and we're just waiting on some shipping things. But it's had a sort of soft opening so far. The public are using it. It seems to be very popular. So there's an obstacle course area, a playground area, and then we'll have some adult exercise equipment to go in beside the playground. But unfortunately, some shipping delays have affected the progress of that. Also, the area of reserve that was discussed in an earlier paper today off William Donald Drive. So there's been some there's a lot of work going into that space. So there's the Solway Residents Association have got a Friends of the Reserve group set up, as Councillor Ballion talked about. There's some work going into a reserve management plan which Greater Wellington Regional Council are helping write due to its historic remnant bush value. And there's also been hapu and iwi consultation around what that particular reserve should be called, and so there's been a unanimous agreement over the new name, which will be called Te Whenua Tāpui o Whakamaru, and that has a hapu link back to a descendant of, or a relative of Retamona Ngāti Te Karau as well. So that's going to be a good thing. We've got some signage in progress, so there'll be a proper formal opening, and that complements the replacement of the boardwalk that's all been done as well within the reserve. So that's going to be something to look forward to. And I'll leave it at that and answer any questions.
Okay, maybe I can start. What was you're talking there about the demolition of the Queen Elizabeth Park Tennis Pavilion?
Yes.
Which I agree needs to go. In front of the tennis pavilion, of course, is that old tennis courts, and probably our park is an amazing place to look at, but the one I saw we have is that area. Will that area be part of the discussion after that pavilion's been destroyed?
Yes. So the pavilion coming down will enable us, as part of next year's car park renovation program, the rear of Coronation Hall, around the contractor's mowing shed, all that area there, that's scheduled for work. So with the bowling club and Coronation Hall and the sports club, that area will enable us some initial alternative parking options to enable that car park work to proceed. I'm not sure if you can recall, but in the long-term plan preparation, Waipa Cricket put a proposal forward around the development of a sports facility. Clearing this area here is an area that they identified as a potential site for that. Obviously that's year 4 of the long-term plan, so there'll be another decision through a long-term plan process about whether that gains traction. But yeah, we'll have the site ready and available. The bowling club have agreed that that lower bowling green potentially could be sacrificed for the development as well, but that's a couple of years away from that. So in the interim, we'll have the site cleaned up and prepared as best as we can to be sympathetic to the environment, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves in redeveloping the space.
We're fair to say though was that there is real potential in that area, isn't it, in that whole area really, to do something.
Yes, definitely. If the cricket proposal doesn't gain traction, then yeah, there's definitely room to look at what else can be brought into that space.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any further questions?
With that, I remember when Simon Rosengrave came to present about that. Is that something that they still show active interest in developing or moving forward with, or has it sort of been forgotten by then?
So Simon's just resigned, but I've spoken to Mel, who's going to be covering for Simon moving forward. We had a meeting with governance members from different sports organisations on Monday with Nuka Ora, and I touched on it with Mel to say, is this going to free up future funding? And as far as I could tell from her feedback, is that it's still something that's on cricket's radar to bring in. They've got plans drawn up. They've got everything there. It's just coming down to whether they can meet their side of that funding agreement.
Thanks,
I could possibly add to that. I've had meetings with Cricket Wairarapa, and yes, certainly it's still there, but Cricket Wairarapa have like most organisations, they have quite a huge funding shortfall, and so it's problematical. Okay, any further? Okay, we then go, we're finished. Somebody prepared to move the Infrastructure and Assets Activity Report, moved by Councillor Bay, seconded by Councillor Halina. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all for your presentations, that's great. Right, phase 3, 2, 1, the Community Activity Report. Warren.
Hello again, councillors and your worship. So I've had the paper as read and just note a few things. So really good to see we had a successful school holiday program in the library. It ended up as a really busy space over a number of days, and even Tiffany, who's very judicious in her use of the word busy, used the word busy describing the atmosphere and the number of people coming through the library during that space. Also, just to note, it's not in the report, but it's good to mention in terms of timeliness. There's a time capsule which is buried in front of the library, which was put in there in June 1982, in the months before the library building was open. And so that was done by the Waipoa Lions. And so that will be opened on or around about the 2nd. We're just talking to them about that. The 2nd is King's birthday. But so that will be interesting to have that. So it was put in with the idea that it would be opened on their 50th anniversary, and that's coming up very fast. So that got surfaced through a bit of work that happened in the archive, so it was drawn to attention. So we'll keep you informed about how that goes. Bylaws and dog control team continue to be very busy. 273 SRs over the month, or over the last 6 weeks. So there's still a lot of activity in that space. And while we're in the stats here, last time you may remember we had a bit of conversation about Enteno and the busyness of that. So we're averaging about 2 items a day coming through Enteno, so we get a number of channels, but that is still actively being used, and it's a really good way of the community actually reporting things through that is going on that they want to draw to the council's attention.
Youth Council, still very busy, and they're building up to the Wave Rave, which is will be part of Youth Week, and that's happening down at the Rec Centre, so it's great that that space is being used, and I know the Youth Council's really excited about putting that event on and creating that space for our youth on the 23rd. And of course we had the Senior Regional Games at the Rec Centre as well, where His Worship took out the Cornhole Challenge against the Deputy Mayor of Carterton and the Mayor of South Wairarapa. So good to see us triumphing in that space. And just lastly, the food business levy. So this is something that the MPI have required all territorial authorities to do. So that comes into place on the 1st of July. So from the 1st of July, any food business that registers for a first time or re-registers, there is a levy that we're required to take from them, which goes back to MPI. So that will be, we've communicated, and that will be part of communication with businesses as they register. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. What sort of things come through Antino typically? What would be, so we got 2 yesterday, what would they have been?
So I'm just giving examples here, right? I don't know what they were, but it could be anything from I'm walking down the street and I see a manhole is off, and so there's a health and safety thing. It could be if there was water issues, so if you've got a broken pipe, those sorts of things. It could be a broken tree limb in the park, especially if somebody sees that, right, and they think that's a health and safety issue. So it could be any number of things right across the business.
Is it used more than the website, the link on the website homepage?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd need to actually look at that. There's probably a couple of things there, right? So there's the web page is very much a communication out tool, where Antino serves two purposes, right? So we communicate out with it, but it also enables our community to actually communicate back to us and highlight issues, and it allows us to get it straight into our SR system as well, so that we can then ensure that things actually happen. So it's a very efficient way of the community informing us of issues.
Okay, any further? Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Corin. I'm a great fan of Antino app, by the way. I use it regularly. Taking care of business is such a great initiative. I'm wondering, from the minute that the person submits the form, what's the general turnaround in days for the new business to be contacted by you guys?
I might see if my subject matter experts in the room.
We usually get a response within 2 weeks after we've spoken to all the team members, and then generally from there they're restricted by the timeframes that each department has on. If they need a food licence, there's 20 days or so forth. If they need liquor licences and whatnot, then there's more time needed.
Cool. So when they submit the form, is there a thank you for reaching out? We'll be in touch, and so there's that first. Cool. Okay, that's great. Awesome. Thank you.
And the name of the game is to get that looked through as quickly as possible, and then get the information back so they can understand all the pieces of council that they may need to interact with to actually successfully launch their business or whatever they need to do.
Love it. Thank you. Great.
Any further questions for Corin? Thank you, Corin. Have we got other people coming up?
No.
That's the whole thing. Somebody's prepared to move then moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Holmes. The report we received. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. I do note that it is 1:10 and we've got a hearing at 2 o'clock, so we need to keep moving. Page 335, Strategy, Policy and Government. Activity report.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've got so many things in our report that it would take forever to go through it, so I'm just happy to answer any questions, and my team is here to help.
Councillor Goodwin.
Just wonder if point 22 was just a slip of the pen. The 8 well-attended community pop-up events. They weren't well attended. I don't know where that came from.
Is that a question?
I just wonder where the well came from.
Figure of speech.
Well attended by staff.
Extremely well attended by staff, and that's an issue. I do think we need to look at
Not that well attended by some councillors, though.
I would just like to respond to that because I know that, Councillor, you have raised that a number of times. You don't pay extra, we don't work on a piece rate. It's all part of our job and we want to support the community. We don't know what we're going to get until we turn up. We'd like to have enough people to cover the pop-ups and that's why we feel the staff that we do. It's usually only 2 or 3. Some have specialist finance, some have specialist corporate planning expertise. That's why we send the people that we send. But maybe I might send the bill to you next time.
Yeah, I just think we should trial a lower number because, if they get overwhelmed, we'll respond.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further questions of Karen? Somebody prepared to move that the full be received? Move Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Bowyer. Any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, meeting reports. David. Holmes?
I've just got a quick one on Tanui. We had a rural advisory group had a meeting at Tanui the other night, which was attended by over 30 people. And a thanks to David Paris, Harriet, Kane, and Alec came, and Tania as well. It was really good. So I was delighted. Got some good feedback from people out there, and just stress that we need to do that more often. There's one thing we need to do is advertise it better. Bloody hard out there. And the other one was that I went to two of the airport meetings about the proposal that are going ahead. The one on Wednesday night was very, very fiery, and I must congratulate David and Maz for the way you handled it. Actually got that bad that Gary got up and took over, and Bex was there as well taking control, but it was very good. But the meeting on Saturday was a very good meeting, but very, very low attendance of people. I must say that I was disappointed about the number of councillors that turned up. Only 2 or 3 of us. It was such an important event that I thought there would have been more there. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further councillors?
Just a question for David. What was firing? What specifically was...
The meeting with the users.
Landing fees.
The landing fees, yeah. The questions that were asked of the officers.
So they were upset about the decisions that we've made?
They all accept it. They all accept that they've got to pay more, but it's just the way that we've been about it. But that'll all come out in the wash.
Yeah, well, I must say it was disappointing. There weren't probably more of you there because it would have been interesting for you to hear the conversation firsthand, and because there was a hell of a lot to learn from it. Yep.
Just to add to that, one of the biggest things was the perception that they're paying a very small contribution to the costs of the airport, and 8% was a number that was quoted in a media release, and there's a misunderstanding about 8% of what, and whether the landing fees versus the whole other income from leases and rentals at the airport versus rates. So the confusion's around that point, and they felt they were being victimised in the media by not paying enough. So we tried to put that right for them and move forward with that.
Councillor Lennox.
Gary, just in regards to a comment about not many of us going to the user group meeting, I'm personally not aware of all these other extra meetings that happen anyway.
Harriet did send it out on email.
Oh, okay.
That the meeting
I didn't pick up on that, that's right. I'm a busy lady, I'm always at other meetings, but yeah. So just on that note, though, all the other little advisory group meetings, are we all informed of? Yeah? Good.
Yep.
Okay. I got the rural one recently. So. Thank you.
Okay. Any further, Councillor Goodman?
Yeah. I did certainly get approached by one of the airport users. You probably sent it to me.
I did try to get my apology, Councillor Goodman. I got laughed out of the room, but that's okay.
That's fine. But anyway, I mean, yes, I certainly got several earfuls, but he maintained that there was no connection from them. Well, I said to him, for the last 14 years, I haven't heard what you're saying. And he said there is no channel to come to us. I just said, look, you can write to the mayor and the councillors any time you want and circumvent that. But my query is, what's the airport users group that used to be around, I don't know.
Hug group.
Yeah. Wasn't that the purpose of that? To bring forward issues they had to council? Is that still active? Is it official?
Yeah, it is still active. It may have been the original purpose. It's quite a large group now. So there was a suggestion that came through on the Wednesday evening about maybe a small kind of technical advisory group. And they had some other useful suggestions, things that will come through the submissions, I'm sure, which, you know, will be worthwhile you all considering.
Okay, because I mean, rightly or wrongly, I did say, well, apart from your submission, could you just attach and use it as an opportunity to put down your concerns on the side to council?
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Johnson.
Just following on from Councillor Goodwin's comments, there is the HUG user group which meets on a regular basis, and a number of councillors attend that, myself, David, Holmes, Craig, and also a number of council staff attend that every time too. Oz, Maz, Lisa, just to name a few. So there is an opportunity for that kind of forum, and we regularly talk about progress, what's happening from a council perspective, and it's an opportunity for them to talk to councillors and question staff. So, yeah.
Councillor Holmes.
I think from what we're hearing, Mr Mayor, I think it's very obvious that we're going to get a lot of verbal submissions on the day, and they'll be really good, and some of them may take longer than 3 minutes too, by the way.
Yeah, one of the things I was asked is whether we could give them more than 10 minutes each, 7 minutes each to speak, and I'm discussing that with Harriet at the moment, whether we will give them the opportunity. Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. We now go on to the Mayor's report. I did have quite a long Mayor's report, but because we're running out of time, I'll just run over a couple of things. There's been a hell of a lot of meetings I've been going to since the last council meeting, probably just about one a night. Recently met with the UCOL hierarchy from Palmerston North, along with members of the Wairarapa Business Leadership Group, to discuss the future of UCOLs, especially those in the Lower North Island, including our campus here in Masterton. It was pleasing to get an assurance at that meeting from the Palmerston North hierarchy that the Wairarapa campus wasn't in jeopardy, and that there was nothing to suggest that it would be. In fact, they're one of the few UCOLs that are actually raising their numbers. But there are questions about staff retaining their jobs, which need to be clarified, and 8 mayors in the Lower North Island, including myself, have written directly to the Minister, Penny Simmons, to express our concern at the uncertainty regarding UCOLs. We've been told that basically nothing will be said until a review comes out within the next couple of weeks. So I'm not suggesting here at all that our UCOL's in jeopardy, but there are real staff concerns there, and we need to know where we're going. Attended the Wairarapa Business Summit along with Kim and Matt Steele, David Holmes and Stella at the Event Centre in Carterton last week. Keynote speaker was Shane Jones. There was no major announcement made there, but I think it's fair to say that a couple of people smiling around the table, that there were clear hints that a water project from the Carterton area is probably likely to get some financial assistance in the budget. And I'm prepared to say, because I have said so in a survey, I personally found the whole summit pretty underwhelming. It was a bit of a political broadcast in a lot of ways, but I'll leave it at that. It probably didn't serve the purpose I thought it would. I was going to talk about Rhododendron, I won't do that. One thing was really good, I attended a function of the Morrisville Fire Brigade where 3 of their members received gold stars, and I had the honour of presenting Andy Sims, their controller, was the first ever honorary life member of the Morrisville Fire Brigade. Andy, it was amazing. It was probably the best kept secret you'd ever have. But Andy had no idea it was coming. And those of you who know Andy, he can speak. He can, he's not afraid to say a few words. He was absolutely rendered speechless. And there were tears coming down. It was really one of the most emotional things I've seen, actually. So that was really good. And it was nice to be able to thank the Morrisville Brigade and other rural fire services for the work they do. Because I think one thing come out at that meeting was that they do a hell of a lot of work other than just attend fires. They go to car accidents, the search and rescue, civil defence. They go and help out at fairs, and it just showed to me how important they are to their communities. And finally, if I could I'll just go on a little bit about positive news we have from the last meeting we had of the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. The contractual target for us in the Wairarapa was 58 people over the 12 months, and with 2 months still to run, we've got 60 people in employment, and it's still growing. And we'd be one of the few in New Zealand who have gone above our target already. And Masterton District is way above, as you'd expect because of our population, way above Carden and South Wairarapa as far as those placements go. Hospitality and retail are the main two. And just on that Mayor's Task Force for Job, it is worth saying that we're something of a trailblazer in New Zealand, and that we're the only region which runs that whole thing across 3 councils. And the success we're having is actually having others now looking at following suit. So it's worked really well here. So look, I'll leave it at that unless you've got any questions. I will move my report. Somebody willing to second it by David. No questions? Everybody in favour? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Now, could somebody move that we go into public excluded? Moved by Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Lennox.